125 caracteres em 5 minutos. Então, a gente começa em 3, 2, 1. Corrigindo, ficou o seguinte: Agência Nacional de Telecomunicações, revisão do Regulamento de Direitos do consumidor recebe contribuições até 2 de março, ponto. Tá, entrou um número, pelo menos um número entrou, né? Número 2. Para quem não lembra como que é o número 2, 2 sons curtos, 3 sons longos, ok? Isso aqui, ó. Ok? 2 de segundo. Então, repetindo, Agência Nacional de Telecomunicações, revisão do regulamento de direito do consumidor, recebe contribuições até 2 de março, ponto.
Bom, quem teve alguma dificuldade, faz a revisão, ok? Todos os ditados estão na playlist, tranquilo? Então, boa sorte. Hoje finaliza o curso. Segunda-feira a gente começa outro, ok? Quem pretende fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando, vai deixando tudo no jeito, ok? Caderno, caneta. Amigos deficientes visuais, vamos ter o curso também para vocês, ok? Na primeira edição, a partir das 5 horas, na segunda edição, 17 horas. Quem não puder fazer nesses 2 horários, via playlist, tranquilo? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. Oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
Makes things real easy. Want to get out of that? Just tap anywhere else on the screen and bam, you're there. If I want to hit my antennas, I can change my antennas, change my preamp setting over here. Got a preamp, which antenna connector I want to use, that kind of thing. Touch anywhere else, it goes away. And that's basically it. There are some other menus here. If I hit the display, I can go over and quickly adjust the way my display looks, the refresh rate, the colors, all that kind of stuff. And I got a main menu up here. Go through all the settings of the radio and get everything tuned up and peaked up just the way I like it. Hit exit, bam, we're back to the main display. So very easy to pop around, get your frequency input, and navigate around the situation. Right now I can see that I'm on battery over here and I'm on the Wi-Fi, so I'm coming in remotely. Depth with everything you need to know to operate the Maestro. First thing, of course, is turning on the Maestro itself with a power button on the top left. You'll first turn on your signature series radio, and then you'll hold this button in for several seconds. You'll see the screen sort of brighten for a second, and the unit starts to boot up. I have to admit that little circle in the blue color that flashes by sort of indicates that this may have been written under Windows 10. There we go. And at this point, you'll be presented with a couple of choices on the way in. I'm going to let it boot at its normal speed here so you see how long things take. You'll see that I have my radio hooked up to this, and it says Bob's Flex 6300. And I could have several radios as optionally available on this. I let it, hit connect, and then I have to choose which software I want to use. And it can have multiple versions of software ready to go. I'm going to pick the latest one. If it needs to have an upload or download, it'll tell you, and it will do that when you choose that software. I'm going to pick the latest 1.8.4.18, hit run. And then, of course, it will boot into that firmware and software. The audio, you'll hear it sort of pop out of the signature for a split second, then it will assign over to the Maestro, and then you'll be presented with the standard display that you're going to see. And there we go. So now we'll just look at the screen itself, and we can see that initially you're presented with a single Panafall display. That means the panoramic adapter at the top, what I'm going to call spectrum analyzer, and the waterfall display below. This was one of the options in earlier Flex radios, and seems like it's what everybody used. So now that's the default option when you bring up the Signature Series radios. And I'm going to show you that it's very easy to zone in on a signal, I'm going to call it. I'm going to tune around with my big tuning knob. I can pick out a signal over here. And I'm going to change my tuning steps there. Come in, turn up my volume a little bit. And what we're looking at really is the spectral capture unit, the big digitizing A to D converter that captures almost all of the, well, it does all of the HF band plus up to about 70 megahertz or more. It's feeding the computer in this thing. And then the computer allows you to create these little receivers, these slice receivers on a panafall. And the slice receiver is that little slice over there. And it can be, look at that, just drag it with my finger to the center of the screen. Say I want to zoom in a little bit. You can manipulate it and change the bandwidth around the signal. So say I touch it there and hit the plus symbol here. Oh, I'm already zoomed all the way in. But I can take two fingers and zoom out to see more of the bandwidth, top to bottom, more of the spectrum, or I can zoom back in by using a two-finger drag, just like on an iPad or tablet. So if I want to get a second receiver going over here, a second slice receiver, I just touch this little up arrow, and all of a sudden I've got a second receiver going at the same time. Now that can be in a completely different band. I happen to be in 20 meters over here, but I'm going to put my finger on the slice here, the receiver itself, and I can see that there's some signals coming in on the waterfall because this is the last 10, 15 seconds. Oh, there's one there. I'm just going to drag it right up to it.
You have a good day. Thanks for joining us this morning. Angelo in Las Vegas, Kilo Charlie 9 Tango Fox. Your turn, Angelo.
And then I can use the bandwidth controls. Look, I've got separate controls here. For each receiver. So they're duplicated. And that's very convenient. I've got volume on each one of them. There's the sideband portion of the band. Here's the CW portion of the band. Separate one here. And then I've got RF gain control in back of that. They call that the AGC time constant. And then I've got my bandwidth controls for upper and lower on each one of the receivers. So you'll notice that on the bottom one, I'm making the window narrower and wider, but I can conform it exactly to the bandwidth of the incoming signal because I can see it on that waterfall. So I get the exact right bandwidth required. That's super handy. And of course, in the setup for the playback, you can put one of these speakers from the first receiver on the left speaker and the other one on the right speaker and have very much separate receivers going on. For me, two is about all I can handle at once. But to get where you're going, if I want to get rid of that second slice, now actually first I'll show you that if we touch this button over here about the second receiver slice, this controls the second receiver slice here, I can mute it. I can put it up on the first pan adapter, panafall display, or I can, I can put it on the second one. So mute and then turn it off, then put it on the first one, and then it goes back to the second one and sort of cycles through them there. So there we go. And I'll also show you that it's very easy to change your tuning step. There's a tuning step button for first and second slice receivers here. So as I hit them, it cycles through the tuning steps, as you can see, from very fine, 1 hertz to, of course, here's the one on the B receiver. So depending on your mode, and of course that will be persistently held in the radio's memory. So when you come back, it'll know what step you were on there. So let's take a little look by zooming back in on the signal here, and you'll see a little bit more clearly about changing the bandwidths on these. We're listening to that CW portion up there. I'll get rid of the other receiver just by pressing the down arrow or back on receiver. And I can step through the different bandwidths simply by pushing in the bandwidth control. And it cycles through the preset bandwidths. And I can also do it manually with the control itself, above and below the signal like that. So that's just perfect. It's like a communications laboratory. Now, how is it that you pick the frequency you want to go to? Well, there's sort of what I call the main menu that you go to, and you can get to it quite easily by just pushing in the tuning knob, but you can also get to it by touching the frequency over here. And to get out, you touch anywhere on the screen, or you hold the button detent in again. And on this menu, it's just got the stuff you use most of the time. If I want to input a frequency directly, I'm going to go 14.250. If I hit enter, it goes right to it, as you see up top left. I can jump to any of the bands immediately. Whoop. And it jumped right out of the menu there. And I can then pick my mode. Additional modes are popping up all the time now that this is pretty much an open API situation here. And we have the presets of bandwidth here that you have on the left as sort of starting points, and then you can use your tweaking knobs up in the top left to customize it completely. Also in here is your regular noise blanker and your wideband noise blanker, noise reduction, which we'll cover a little bit more in detail, automatic notch filter, and these also have slider adjusters. Remember that it's always best to use the absolute least amount of the slider to get the effect that you want. And tracking notch filter, full duplex, FDX there, so your AGC as well. And I found that AGC medium seems to work best for me on sideband, where you might have used slow. I prefer medium. Also is the recording features there if you want to record it for a while and then play back. DAX is your digital audio routing, so you tell it where to route the audio when you're running the digital modes. So this is one of the menus you use quite a bit. Depending on your background noise level and how much sort of RF signal you got coming in your receiver, the spectrum analyzer, I'm just going to call it, which is really what it is adjustable in two ways. And that is to adjust where the baseline sits, because I'm right at about negative 121 dBm on my noise level. And that varies. I mean, sometimes it's negative 124, different background noise levels. You know, the guy's plasma TV is on next door or whatever. And then here is the sensitivity, I'm going to call it. It's really the scale, and it allows you to, well, it's really changing the sensitivity or zooming in on the display like that. So you'll probably eventually find a position that you like for almost everything. And that for me is about there. One of the things that you normally set it up and sort of set it and forget it is the display. You hit the display button on the bottom and you get this handy dandy menu over here, and that's frames per second. And you see where mine is. If you have the frames per second really slow, you'll see that the update over here is really slow. It's sort of like a slow video game. The processor in this thing can handle absolutely fast frame rate, and I like it up about there. Averaging is very important because you see if you have no averaging, it's like a real-time old-fashioned spectrum analyzer. It's just a lot less visual fatigue to run up the averaging a little bit. And these are totally personal preferences. So then all of your colors and gain, things like that over here for the waterfall on the bottom. Your rate, that's the speed of the waterfall. If you want it to show more seconds, like up to a half a minute of stuff or more, I prefer rather, more like 15, 20 seconds, something like that. That, of course, is personal preference. And your DAX IQ over here. So where's that digital IQ channel going for things like CW Skimmer and other programs? And then, of course, you can always hit auto. You do have full color control as well of the waterfall and everything there. So you'll probably set this once and sort of forget about it. The Signature Series radios and through the Maestro control head have a lot of noise mitigation features. And I just went down onto 80 meters to try to find something. There's a little bit below 80 to find a nice grindy noise over here. I am running full solar power, so we have seen some articles lately in QST about noise from solar systems. I think that probably was only with maybe one manufacturer that fellow was using of inverters and such. I have 5 kilowatts right above the shack here and don't experience any noise from it. So I think that might have been a one-off situation. Anyway, here's a nice little spur. Not sure where it's coming from. I got a lot of stuff in the house here. Chinese security lights and the satellite receiver, I noticed, gives off some spurs, TV receiver. So to get to the noise mitigation features, you get to your main menu by pushing in the main tuning dial or just hitting the frequency over here. And we can see we have our traditional noise blanker, our wideband noise blanker, our digital noise reduction, automatic notch filter, and our tracking notch filter. So turn that off at the moment. We can turn on our noise blanker. Let's take a listen and see what that does. Pretty good. All right, here we are on 50.125 with a nice little grinding S2 background noise sitting there polishing. First, I'm going to turn on the traditional noise blanker. All right, without adjusting the level, it brought it down to S1. Now I'm going to turn on the digital noise reduction. Brings it down further. And now I'm going to turn on and off the noise blanker while leaving the digital noise reduction on. You can hear the grinding noise come back up in the background. And turn it back on. So the level comes up, but the grinding noise is down. So what you're hearing is that when that grinding noise is taken away, the background hiss comes up because we're hearing the actual band instead of the noise. Again, noise blanker is on now. We'll turn it off. And turn the noise reduction off. You can see in the top left of your screen, right above the 50, you can see the little NB and NR. Adjust the levels and then take a look back, turning them on and off. I hadn't adjusted the levels. Watch the top left of your screen. So tremendous difference when using this kind of processing. Anyway, find the combination that works for you there. Of course, automatic notch filter, we know what that. If you have a heterodyne, you adjust that and try to knock out some heterodyne tones in there. That's sort of rare these days. And if those heterodyne noise tones are persistent, say that they're coming out of something in your house, you can use the tracking notch filters. And that is, I've covered on the 6300 review video in more detail. But they will stay there persistently and knock out if you have persistent tones generated, garbagey spurs from things in the house or a neighbor's house. Just as a side note, when we have two slices open and we're tuning them around, you can see that when I start to tune one of the slice receivers, its bar turns yellow, showing it's the active one. If I tune the second slice over here, now it's the active one. It's yellow and the other's red, the secondary. All right, I'm sitting here on 20 sideband portion, and I'm just going to show that if I want to capture a signal, I can actually just tap on the screen and it'll move the slice receiver right over to that location.
On the outside with screws in it so you can screw it to the front panel. Something to clamp it on there.
You go fine tuning with my main tuning dial. But like I said, you can move the whole screen with your finger. You can zoom out by spreading your fingers out, or zoom out and zoom in. And you can move the slice receiver with your finger to a signal. Quite easy. Remember, though, that it's important to turn your AGC time constant, really what is RF gain, to the minimum required to hear the signal well, just like any RF gain. You really get the best performance when you adjust that AGC time constant. I'm calling it RF gain, right to that minimum point where the thing sounds the best.
Motorized U.S. tower. That's working conditions here. What if you let me know what you're running there, and also pass along your name. K9 Delta Foxtrot Sierra.
Now let's take a look at profiles and memories. I'm going to go into the main menu here. This is, of course, a function and feature of the Signature Series radio, and this is how you access it through the Maestro. We go into that menu, the main big menu, go down to memory over here, and I've got a whole bunch of frequencies saved in here. You can just save a memory anytime you want, and then you'll have them in your big list, and you can just highlight it, hit load, and it goes directly to that memory, and we're ready to go here on one of the military comm frequencies. Go back to menu. That's really, self-explanatory. When you do save, it shows you all the details about it on the right over here. But profiles are something that's a lot more complex and, well, interesting. We have global, transmit, and microphone profiles. Now, you'd think that these might be hierarchical and that, global would be everything and TX might be a smaller subset and mic would be a smaller subset, but it's not quite exactly that. Global does remember almost all of the settings, and that's if, say, I want to just pop to Olivia digital mode on 20, I can highlight it and go load, and I'll be completely set up to ready to go on Olivia on 20. The list of what these control are in the manual, and it's quite extensive. I'm not going to just show them on the screen here. The TX menu is for transmit conditions where it's the setups with your amplifiers and things like that, all the porting, the way that works. And it's a subset, small set of things that you'll see in the manual, but it doesn't cover anything that the mic profiles cover, which is what type of mic you're using, the EQ settings for it, and all that kind of thing. So sometimes you'll have the same titles in all of these here, but they're not covering the same things. So, and also these intelligently get sort of linked to each other. So modes get linked to a profile intelligently. And by using these, you really figure out exactly the relationships. It's hard to just spell it out. It's more like language. Once you start using it, you'll say, oh yeah, I've got that. All right, I got it. So just use it and you'll figure out what these things cover as far as each one of them. Now, there's another term to know, and that is persistence. Persistence is not the same thing as a profile or a memory. Persistence is the different little settings that you have on each band that when you leave that band and you come back, it remembers those settings. And we're used to that happening, but that's the term that covers what that is. Next, we're going to look at the transmit menu, and you get there by pressing this control in. This menu is one of the ones that you sort of set it and don't come back to it a lot. Come back to it a little bit more than, say, the display menu. But first, where's your audio coming from? There's some connections on the back here, line input, mic input. You need to select which one you're going to have as the incoming audio. A lot of us are just going to be using, the handheld mic and plug it in the back with the RJ45 connector and set it up for that and leave it. There's a little plug there. And then we have the processor here. Now we're on digital mode, so the processor is not lit up. On sideband it would be. And you can adjust the processor from normal, DX, and DX plus. Of course, this uses that great algorithm created by that guy in the Midwest to really give a lot of punch and talk power. You've got a level control. The monitor is what you'd use to listen to your audio locally. And that is also very useful in setting up your transmit audio quality the way you like it. So there's a nice little page on that in the manual. It's got a level control. Yeah, we got little digital signals coming in there. Here's your carrier level for AM adjustment, your tune power output, your Vox sensitivity and delay, standard stuff. ATU memory is turned on, so when you come back to a frequency location, it remembers what the tuning was before and allows you to tune up quicker. Your DAX audio, routing the audio out for digital uses. The microphone on the bottom and TX are the profiles and showing which ones you're set for at the time. DEXP is, I call it a noise gate limiter kind of thing. You adjust it to kill the background noise when you're not talking. That gives a really nice effect. So you have no background noise. Only when you're talking does the audio come up. And your high and low frequency adjustments for transmit bandwidth. I sort of prefer to going down to 0 and up to 3000. That's what I prefer, but that's settable. And of course, this radio is capable of transmitting extended sideband for people that like to experiment with that. Now for the main menu. Let's hit the main menu and start at the top. Maestro, we got display LED brightness there. I'm going to leave that up full. We got the LEDs behind the buttons and knobs on the right. You can turn that on and off. We got the serial numbers, software version, snap to tune step enabled. Let's look at the radio again. Serial number, model, your nickname. You can put anything you want in there, your call sign. And the frequency netting here, once the radio is really warmed up after a while, you can net the frequency in there. The function buttons, we've got 6 of them. There's actually 3 of them physically on the radio, but if you hold them in for longer, that's the second set of 3. So these are really easy to set. You just drop down the menu, slide up and down what you want. I'm going to have the noise blanker set up for F1, and I have mode set up for 4, 5, and 6 to jump to USB, AM, and CW real quick without opening a menu. Those are handy. Network is next. sketch IP number, all the different standard stuff, your Wi-Fi name. And when you set up the Wi-Fi initially, you'll go into Wi-Fi settings and put in your password, and it will memorize it. And next time it will connect to it for you. This stuff is all for networking. And then our diagnostics, which are somewhat important down here because a lot of times you guys are going to be coming in with Wi-Fi from this unit, and you'll want to know that you're getting a good connection. So these numbers down here tell you whether your network status is excellent, good, very good, or whatever. And so your maximum latency time, the delay, and you want that to be as low as possible. I do suggest, of course, that if you're going to run this control console right in front of the radio itself, to use an RJ45 Ethernet cable directly connected to your signature series radio, as that will absolutely result in the lowest latency. And once you're going through a router and that kind of stuff, you can incur some latency. So you want to know that it's working well. And I can reset the stats. And that will give you the most real-time feeling. Now I'm coming in via Wi-Fi, and it feels very good to me. Here's our audio, where it's going. The main audio out, it's coming out of the Maestro. Okay, very good. Binaural audio. That does that sort of phase thing. You can listen on CW and headphones and might give a better copy.
Ponto final, Papa Tango, ok? Lembrando, tem essa outra forma também aqui, ó. O 10º fala o seguinte: as estações do serviço de radioamador deverão obedecer à legislação e à regulamentação específica sobre o uso de radiofrequências. Bom, a gente já estudou tudo isso, né, incluindo 2 tabelas desta legislação, que associa bandas a classes de radioamadores que podem utilizar, ok? Então, tudo isso já está aqui na legislação, já estudamos. Depois, ó, a legislação, a regulamentação específica sobre o uso de radiofrequência. Então, sobre essa legislação, foi o que nós já vimos. É uma tabela que pega todas as bandas do radioamadorismo, ok? Esses deverão obedecer, ó, as estações do serviço de radioamador deverão obedecer, ou seja, né, você tem que observar essas bandas que estão atreladas à classe do radioamadorismo, ok? Que bandas você pode falar? Então, para a classe C, para a classe B e para a classe A. Tranquilo? O artigo 11º fala o seguinte: as estações do serviço de radioamador deverão ser licenciadas nos termos da regulamentação específica sobre licenciamento de estações para telecomunicações. Bom, aqui não tem muito o que falar. A partir do momento que você resolve ser radioamador, com certeza, né, faz a provinha, né, já tira a licença, já tira o COER, já pega o seu indicativo. Aqui a gente já leu a respeito, né, sobre a formalização aí do hobby, ok? A partir do momento que você resolve ser radioamador, tem que ter a licença, né? Ó, deverão ser licenciadas, ok? Ou seja, você fez a prova, passou, né, paga lá uns valores no banco e maravilha. Já vai ter a licença, já vai ter o COER e também o seu indicativo. Artigo 12º fala o seguinte: as estações do serviço de radioamador deverão obedecer ao estabelecido na regulamentação específica sobre os limites à exposição de campos elétricos, magnéticos e eletromagnéticos. Tem uma norma, tem uma regulamentação que fala dessa exposição a esses campos eletromagnéticos, porém, né, o nosso hobby é que oferece menor perigo e risco. Quando se fala de potências para rádio, televisão, né, rádios que trabalham com 50 kW, 100, 200 kW, é uma pegada diferente, ok? Então a gente trabalha com uma potência muito pequena, né? Aqui as estações de serviço de radioamador deverão obedecer ao estabelecido na regulamentação específica sobre limites de exposição a campos elétricos, magnéticos e eletromagnéticos. Nossa própria legislação traz limites de potência, e com isso a gente está mais resguardado, ok? Então, é o que eu falei, né? As nossas potências são muito pequenas, ok? E poucos radioamadores, né, vão usar o potencial máximo. Né? Você tem como classe A, por exemplo, 1.500 watts de potência permitido, ok? Às vezes o radioamador classe A tem um rádio de 100 watts, um rádio de 200 watts, né? Tem lá um linear de 500, 700, 1 kW, né? Potência muito pequena, e normalmente a antena fica em cima do telhado, ok? Então, essa exposição aí para nós não é tão perigosa quanto, né, exposições a campos eletromagnéticos de maior potência, ok?
Bom, a gente vai dar um intervalo e já retornando. São 5 horas, 35 minutos. Lembrando que segunda-feira, começando mais um curso. Quem pretende fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando. Serão 3 possibilidades de você fazer o curso com a gente. A primeira possibilidade via radiofrequência. A segunda possibilidade via internet, na live. E a terceira via playlist, lá no nosso canal, ok? Então, escolhe uma das 3 opções. Escolhendo qualquer uma das 3, a qualquer momento você tira dúvidas com a gente, ok? Via radiofrequência, via internet, na live. Tranquilo? Então, segunda-feira, a gente começa aí mais um curso. 4 meses de aulas, janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. Vai se preparando e boa sorte. E vamos lá. Oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
Up and down QSB drift, and a lot of times results in a lot better signal reception.
Where you cry out to God, for only God can produce it.
Yeah, this guy's got more signals than anybody else in the shortwave band. If I can do this and zoom out a whole bunch, I can see that there may be other signals out there. Pretty quiet during the day over here. There's one over there. I'm going to center it. I'm going to zoom in on it. And I can see that it's quite narrow. So let's adjust our bandwidth to it.
Here's a quick look at the weather before we go. Beijing will see some thunder showers tonight with a low of 24 degrees. It's sunny tomorrow with a high of 30. Thursday will be cloudy overnight with a low of 25. Cloudy tomorrow, high of 33 degrees. Lanzhou, torrential rain tonight with a low of 15. Slight rain tomorrow with a high of...
So it's very, very excellent shortwave receiver, of course. Well, there you have it, a new paradigm in ham radio, an interactive wireless touchscreen.
But if you want to connect a desk mic, you need to look for a compatible MH31 Yaesu mic or a desktop mic that is modular like this. So you will need to do that. I actually using MFJ 1263. It's a video I did in the past to switch between my radios and this one with the Yaesu setup. In the bottom here, you have 10 F keys and you have up to 21 from here. But these are programmable keys. It comes by default with some program. Let's see now. Here I have start. This will just shut down the software and turn it on. Okay, shut down, back on. So you can use that, but you can program it. You can decide that this key is for switching the TX antenna. So look at the TX antenna here. So I can switch. So it's all programmable. So that is very, let's put to A1. Okay. That is very useful. Let's put it back to start and stop. And it's all the same everywhere. Okay. And you can use the key after. Here is the band scope just to show you. So you will see the complete HF band. So that is very, very nice. Okay. So you can see the band scope. And you can program everything. Here, you also as you wish, but it's all the same menu, okay? So you select the one you want for that button. Here I have the keyboard. As you can see, keyboard can be useful if you don't have a plug-in keyboard. Sorry, try it. You just push, you see the keyboard here. So you just push, and there you go. Remember, this is a touch screen, but you can also use the mouse. Okay, so this is very nice. You can close this. Now, let's go on the right side of the transceiver. This is something crazy that I have to show you. It's the VFO. Let's start with the largest button, the VFO. The VFO feels very, very, very nice. Okay, so let's put us in the center. It's very, very smooth, and I saw why recently. I noticed that this button here, where you put your finger, is actually turning on itself, and it's very smooth, like ball bearing type of turn. Okay, so when you put your finger in, at the contrary to other radio, your finger doesn't, it glides. It doesn't move. The finger doesn't move. Nothing move under the finger. It just stay there, and then the VFO is moving. As you can see, when I get out of the band, there's an indication on the display here. So this is cool. And it is set up for region 2, that's mean North America, band plan. So that's it for the VFO. Now let's start with the button right here. Those are the band switch, okay? So if you want to go on 80 meter, I'll switch on 80 meter. If I want to go back to 20 meter, I'll switch to 20 meter. Please remember that this radio goes up to VHF as well. So
Bom dia para o nosso amigo Manuel. Grande abraço, hein, Manuel? Tudo de bom. Feliz ano novo aí para o amigo. E que tenha um ano próspero, com muita saúde, ok? E muito QSJ também, tá bom? PY2EXU, Juliette, Mike, Papa. Obrigado pelos votos. Tá bom, Manuel? Fique aí com a gente. Bom, lembrando os amigos que dia 8, domingo 2023, primeira edição do Ponto de Encontro de Radioamadores, Hermelino Matarazzo. Quem pretende conhecer, quem não conhece, aproveita, ok? Edição número 1 do Ponto de Encontro de Radioamadores, Hermelino Matarazzo. Para quem não conhece o endereço, vou passar aí para os amigos, ok? Anota aí. Parque Municipal Hermelino Matarazzo, Rua Abel Tavares, 1542, primo, quinto, quarto, segundo. Então, repetindo, Parque Municipal Hermelino Matarazzo, Rua Abel Tavares, 1542, ok? Vai ser o primeiro encontro de radioamadores 2023, domingo, dia 8, tranquilo? Lembrando, tem churrasco, tem refrigerante, é o dia inteiro ali, de bate-papo, feirinha de eletroca, compra, venda de equipamentos usados, antenas, fontes, acopladores, etc, e etc, ok? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. Outra coisa, hein? Não esquecendo, segunda-feira, iniciando mais um curso de CW. Quem pretende fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando, ok? A gente não vai mudar os horários. Mesmíssima programação. Primeira edição, 5 horas. Segunda edição, 17 horas, ok? 4 meses de aulas, janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril, e 7 turmas, sendo 2 de deficientes visuais, ok? Ou para deficientes visuais. Tranquilo? Então, boa sorte. E até segunda-feira a gente vai repassando. Aí amanhã vai ter rodada também, ok? Amanhã esquema não muda, mesmíssimos horários. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
that. So that is very easy. Then you have the DSP function, the noise reductor, noise blanker 1, noise blanker 2, auto notch filter. This button here is for a future option that will be available in an upgrade. You have binaural audio. This sounds more like a stereo effect. And if you push any of the DSP button here and leave your finger on it, it will pop up the DSP setting. Then you can actually adjust the noise blanker as you wish. So, and you can activate, disactivate, and see how it's fully integrated. I use the mouse, okay? I activate here, disactivate there. I can activate here, disactivate there. I can do this as well. I can do this as well. Okay, so there's a lot of way to do things with this radio. You have the auto notch, noise blanker. You can select it all if you want, okay? And for the noise reductor, there's another place to do the setting. I will show you that in a few moments. Let's close that down. So you have one noise reductor, noise blanker 1, noise blanker 2, auto notch, and the binaural audio. At the bottom of the DSP, what you have here is the sub button, sub receiver. So you can activate the sub receiver. If you want to adjust the volume, go to the mute as I showed you before to go into the mixer. Then you can have A to B. Okay, so let's change it again. And B to A. Okay, I just touched the, there you go. So you can switch actually A and B. You have the TX that you can set up differently. Okay, so you can TX on one frequency and RX on the other one. And you have the same, which is the split button that do separate TX and RX as well, okay? And you can also activate that into the menu directly. Around the VFO, there is some button. There is a lock, so you can lock the VFO. As you can see, it's very sensible, so it's very useful to lock it. I lock it most of the time when I'm in a QSO because I have a tendency to touch the radio and just touch the VFO. There's maybe other adjustment that I can do, but I didn't find out yet. There's a lot of stuff about this radio, so I try to do a quick tour and it won't cover everything. There's an RX2 button that won't work until you activate the RX2 here. The RX2 is another radio with 2 receiver, 2 VFO. So if you use the RX2 here, okay, and you can send that to another monitor so you can see 4 VFO at the same time. But if you activate here, now the VFO is on RX2, not on RX1, okay? If you deactivate it, you are actually tuning on RX1 that you don't see right now. But if I do this, you will see that it move under, okay? So this is for the RX2 VFO. Let's shut it down. We'll do a special video for that in the future. You can switch A and B, okay, as well. Done. You have a button here that can actually decide, let's say you want to have a wide spectrum view. Okay, that's the case. This is for zoom in or zoom out in the scope, okay? Or you can use the mouse as I show you before. Let's go like this. Okay, I believe I show you that. There you go. Okay, so now you see the band. So you could want the VFO to be center and the band is moving with the VFO. But let's say you are doing DX and you want to see activity and you don't want to, to see in the waterfall like this, and it's hard to recall the station where it is. So if you want to have it fixed, you push on that button, DNI, indicator 1 will appear, and then you are actually scrolling into the band without affecting the waterfall and the spectrum. So that is, I believe, a useful feature for DXers. So let's bring it back to normal. Then you have the button here. You have the mic gain, okay? You have the drive for power. Always look in the screen on the side there so you can see the detail, what it does on the screen, so what's changed. You have the AF gain, the volume, the RF gain, okay? You have the monitor volume, you have the squelch, okay? If you activate the squelch here, then That's how you set up the squelch. So you want it I go like this, okay, then the squelch is activate, then it's deactivate. So that is useful on VHF, of course. And you can do adjustment with the shift. The shift button can also be used to set up things. To activate the shift, you do a long push like this, and it activates the shift. So now this button can be used as, you know, a rotating knob for some function. So this is how you activate the shift. So, okay, I think we cover for this button here. If it's not activated here, the shift is used to shift the frequency. So let's zoom in like this. Put your mouse on it, and then you'll see the frequency. Now you see I can shift the frequency. This can be useful, you know, if you have interference, so you can use the shift, and you can actually set up the bandwidth with the width between under that button. Okay, the second knob is the width, and you can enlarge the filter as I showed you before, and now you see the shift is completely on top of the filter, so you can bring it back. Okay, so you can use that. This is the mic button, and this is something funny because when I received the radio, my friend Robin was here via A2 and RJ, and we couldn't find the mic input. And we went everywhere in the menu, and we could have changed to mic 2, but it's right here. You just push it. You see you have the PC mic. Hold on. There's a compressor activate for the PC mic. There is the mic 1 and mic 2, and you adjust the mic gain here. So it's very easy. If you push on the mic, and momentarily you will have the selection here. You can actually adjust gain differently for each. You also have some setup for the paddle. Okay. Then you have the compression. You can activate, deactivate compression. Same thing in the menu. All the feature here can be activated right with the mouse. So the compressor, if you leave momentary on it, you can adjust the compressor. There you go. And if you press again, it's going to leave the menu, but you can also use the X with the mouse. Then you have the box. Okay, so I have to be careful because it's not set up correctly. So you have the threshold for the box and the compressor. There you go. The squelch. You can activate, deactivate the squelch. Just showed you how to set it up. So, you know, you activate the squelch. You rotate the squelch knob and adjust it like this. Then you have the RX EQ. You push on it, it's on, off. If you leave momentary on it, you can adjust it. I like it very much because I have some frequencies on the high end. It's very, you know, I don't like it, but I don't like to shut it down completely because it makes the audio sounds, you know, too bassy. So having an RX EQ is a very nice feature for me, so I can very adjust the audio as I wish, okay? Then you have the TX EQ. Oh, TX EQ. This is something special, okay? First of all, there's a lot of settings, so I can't go through it all. But what I can do is show you what I did. So there's filters, the noise gate. The noise gate by default works very well. What it does, it actually shuts down the audio into the microphone when you don't speak. So if you're in SSB having a QSO, if you pause a little, you don't hear the amplifier fans in the back because you actually, this will shut it down. This will actually cut off the background noise between your words. So that is the noise gate, and I use it.
Como eu falei, né? A potência de 50, 100, 200 kW aí, essas potências são bem maiores. Tem que esse espectro, né, essas faixas que a gente trabalha, não são ionizantes, ok? Frequências não ionizantes, aquelas que não têm risco à nossa vida, né? Frequências ionizantes são lá para cima do ultravioleta, raio-x, raios gama, né? Essas assim, são ionizantes, ok? São aquelas que arrancam os elétrons do átomo, né? Então, podem provocar no organismo câncer, leucemia, quebra do código genético, né, por conta dessa energia, ok? Então, nesse potencial, é só para cima de ondas, né, que estão lá no ultravioleta, raio-x, raio-gama, aí são ionizantes, tranquilo? Aqui embaixo, onde a gente se encontra, no espectro eletromagnético, não tem perigo, ok? São ondas de rádio, né? Ondas de rádio, depois você tem micro-ondas, né, no espectro eletromagnético, tá bom? Na verdade, são 7 subdivisões. Só para lembrar os amigos, são ondas de rádio, onde a gente se encontra, micro-ondas, infravermelho, luz visível, ultravioleta, raio-x, raios gama, ok? Então, essas são as 7 subdivisões do espectro eletromagnético. Tá? Como está bem no comecinho ondas de rádio aqui, você não tem risco nenhum, ok? E outra, né, as potências que a gente usa são pequenas. 50, 100 watts aí, um ou outro radioamador com 200, tá bom? Bom, o artigo 13 fala o seguinte: os equipamentos para radiocomunicação utilizados na exploração do serviço de radioamador, inclusive os sistemas irradiantes, deverão cumprir os requisitos e observar dispostos na regulamentação específica sobre especificação e homologação de produtos para telecomunicações, ok? Aqui no artigo 13º, talvez mais preocupante, seja a questão dos rádios homologados. É interessante você ter o seu equipamento homologado ou os seus equipamentos homologados, ok? Se tiver um rádio, tiver 3 rádios, 5 rádios, hoje a homologação está bem tranquila, é bem fácil, você homologa tudo pela internet, ok? É só entrar no site da Anatel, que é o www.anatel.gov.br, e lá na parte do radioamadorismo, para você homologar os equipamentos. Ele tem um passo a passo do sistema mosaico, você vai acompanhando, vai fazendo aquelas determinações e você, no final, já deixa aquele teu equipamento para ser homologado pela Anatel. Então, você conclui, né, os procedimentos desse processo de homologação e já coloca à disposição da Anatel. A Anatel vai verificar aquela relação, né? Você coloca a foto do rádio ou fotos do rádio, coloca foto do RG, do CPF, enfim. Né? Segue, né, o passo a passo lá do mosaico e aguarda o retorno da Anatel. Então, normalmente, né, os equipamentos são homologados aí com tranquilidade, sem nenhum problema, ok?
Bom, a gente dá mais um intervalo. Lembrando, hoje, analisando resolução 697/2018. Estamos nas disposições finais, pois quem quiser dar uma olhada, você pega tudo isso no Google, ok? Coloca a resolução 697/2018, escreve a Anatel na frente. Tá? Se você não escrever a Anatel na frente, a busca ali vai te trazer um monte de opções, ok? Em todo o Brasil, né? Isso é pesquisado aí a nível de disposições a nível federal, estadual, municipal. Então, é um monte de tranqueira que não te interessa. Tá? Pondo a Anatel na frente, a busca será só na área de telecomunicações, ok? E aparecerá essa norma aí em primeiro plano, tranquilo? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. Oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
Correction for the power on each band. Okay, so you can do adjustment, expert only, and you can read and write those change that you do. So you can back up the first change and adjust. Mine, it seems to be like 100, 103 watts on each HF band and about 50 on VHF. So it seems correct, but I didn't go through, with a real good power meter to check that out, but maybe in the future, but you can adjust it over there. So that's just the device, okay? So let's go to the sound card. On the sound card, You can actually activate or deactivate the sound on the sound card. Okay, so that is important if you want to record like I'm doing now with the screen capture. But the sound's going to be mute because I'm just showing you the screen. And you have it for RX2 as well. You have the display. The display, you can select the display port to be, the display can be selected to be 4K. So it will adjust the font, put in bigger for a larger screen or higher resolution screen. This is a very, very cool feature that I appreciate. Or it will work on a normal HD screen. Even on this one, if you click on it, the fonts will be bigger, okay? So it will not be a perfect fit, but if you have problem reading, this can be helpful. And you can select your region here. I'm on region 2, North America. And this will set up the band plan. And you can also use 60-meter band by checking right here. You have the spectrum that you can select. The color by default is very nice. And here you can add the DX spot. Okay, I will check it out. And I will show you the setting for that in a few moments. You have the waterfall. You can stop it in TX or you can see it while you transmit. I like to see it when I transmit. That's very nice. You have the grid. You have the filter. You can show on the waterfall background. You can select an image and adjust the transparency right here. So like I did with the VA2 PV in the screen. And then you have the power meter set up. You have the CAT. You can control RX1, RX2 using ECAT or OmniRig. You have the cPanel. This is a external controller that you can program. There's some feature as well that I didn't go through yet. Expert Sync, CW Skimmer that you can adjust. You have shortcuts, IQ Recorder. You can set up the directory for that. Open over there and watch it if you would like. You can enable the transceiver control interface, and then you have the DX spots. If you enter this Telnet DX cluster and you select into the display, hold on here, show spot, look what it does. It shows the spot right on the display, and you click on it, boom, you're there. This radio is really incredible. Look at this. Look at this. How great it looks, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing radio that I didn't cover everything yet. It's a long video, but still a lot to cover. So very, very nice. I do like the DX spot directly on the screen. That is very, very cool.
Bon, mais là, je suis avec... là, j'ai le nom.
Hello everyone! Since my last video about the SDR Play RSP1, showing it that I was able to install, download, and install the software and make it work in less than 2 minutes, people were asking me if I did try it before. So no, that was not the case. I did add some experience with the SDR software before, but I never played with SDR Uno. I never installed it before, never installed it on that machine. What I did after that, I also installed it on another machine, and it took me about the same time. I didn't have no issue. So it was very easy on both machines. They run Windows 10 up to date. So, and it went very well. I didn't try with any other software, and I didn't try to sync it with my HF radio. I'm not there yet. So maybe that will be a little bit more complicated, even though I did set it up in the past with another SDR using OmniRig to be able to sync my old HF radio, which was the FTDX 3000. That was synced with an RTL SDR. So like I said, as I remember, this was a little bit more complicated to set up, but this one was very easy with SDR Uno. What I'm going to do in this video, so we're going to go through the windows. I'm now more familiar with the software, so you will see that it's a lot easier for me to manipulate the VFO, change frequency, and play with the thing. Also, in my last video, I was not able to record directly the audio of the receiving SDR. What you got was from my mic. Actually, I was not able to record through the software correctly. The input was too high or something, so there was distortion. So I need to play with that to see how can I set that up. So I need to figure it out. But on this video, I should get you all the sound of the SDR so you can get a feel how it sounds like. So it sounds actually pretty good. When I look at the band on the spectrum of the SDR play, and I look on the spectrum of my TS990, I don't see not much of a difference between the two. It's different in the display, even though you can configure the SDR play image you get from the window, the spectrum window. But there's what I wanted to say is that I don't see like birdies or noise that I don't see on the others. So it seems to be very good in filtration, but
But going back to the wider, I can get both signals out of the same passband.
And I hear at least 3 signals there.
There's 3 now. And for those that have 7700s out there wondering where I'm getting this setting, we'll come out and hit the set and go to others. And you'll find the command Digicel VR operation, which is variable operation. It's defaulted to Digicel. But if you go to the APF, that's where this then becomes your adjustment for the APF.
Okay.
Only the 7700 and 7800 have that adjustable functionality. The 7600 has the APF, but you then use your tuning dial
Okay.
to make your adjustments.
And then following on down, of course, we have the notch. And
You've got the manual notch. The outer one's going to be your notch.
okay.
Now, one thing about the notch is you can select a wide, mid, and narrow on the notch as well.
Mm-hmm. Now the notch is going to be different here. It's a manual notch here.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't want to auto notch on CW, or you would notch out what you were trying to listen to.
But if we come over here to sideband,
yep, I can hit the notch here, and
a lot of key clicks. There's a nice, beautiful heterodyne.
yes.
When you go to your automatic notch, you notice it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But look at what you got right here on your scope.
You still got plenty of signal.
Yes. But if you go to the manual,
oh, you lose signal.
yes. The automatic notch just masks it in the audio, does not take it out of the S meter. So when you use the manual notch, that's 70 dB of attenuation that will then take it out of the S meter.
Okay. Does it also take it out of the AGC?
Yes, that's what's driving your S meters, your AGC circuit.
Okay. So really the manual notch is going to give me more protection. It's going to notch out that signal, but also going to allow my signal I'm trying to hear pass through stronger.
Yeah, so if you got somebody close by tuning up,
mm-hmm.
and you're working a real weak signal and you're trying to hear them go QSL,
mm-hmm.
that everything was exchanged properly, but somebody else wants to work them, is sitting there tuning up, your automatic notch is going to mask them. But if their RF power overpowers the weaker signal, you'll never hear them. But if you go to the manual notch and you notch the guy out using the manual notch, your S meter and everything the floor noise will drop down to whatever the next stronger signal is going to be. And maybe it's that guy that you're trying to get that QSL 59.
Mm-hmm. Below the notches, then we've got the RIT, which receive increment tuning. Is that the right name?
Yes, sir, it is.
And that basically just allows me to shift off a little bit. I use it here. We have a net control on one of the nets here that's his rig's off frequency. And so
he will never admit it, will he?
He will never admit it. So when his night comes along, I'll turn on the RIT and I'll turn off just a little bit there so I can hear him in a somewhat normal voice. But yet when I transmit, I'll be on the frequency that I intend to transmit on. So that only affects the receive frequency. Of course, I guess this means delta transmit.
Yes, that's going to do what you just did with your RIT for his signal. You can do that for your transmit, so you can move it some.
Right. And then clear just takes out whatever I had set there.
Well, there's two different ways of clearing it. One is just what I would call rag chew mode, where you push and hold it. That's basically you're telling it, yes, I definitely want to clear it.
Mm-hmm.
But for contesters, every little second counts. A push and hold could be a lost cue.
Yeah.
So you can go into set mode and set that clear from momentarily tap, and it will clear it.
Yeah.
If you push and hold it, it will put it into your VFO. Same thing if you do your RIT. So your RIT, say he's 5K off.
Yeah, once I find him, then I could.
Once you find him, you push and hold it, and it will write it to your VFO.
So if he's the only guy I'm trying to listen to, well, then that's fine.
Yes.
That works just fine, because I might as well transmit where he's transmitting.
Or where he thinks he's transmitting.
Or where yeah.
Eu diria que hoje o mais preocupante é você homologar o seu rádio. Tá bom? Talvez o item mais necessário, né, para os radioamadores é essa homologação do rádio, ok? O parágrafo único do artigo 13 fala o seguinte: são dispensados de atender os requisitos mencionados no caput, ou seja, no artigo 13, os equipamentos produzidos de forma eventual ou artesanal e sem propósito comercial. Aqui vai lembrar o seguinte: quando fala que estão dispensados dessa homologação, né, são para amigos que fazem lá seu rádio, seu equipamento, montam um linear, por exemplo. Tá? Então, para quem tem essa facilidade, conhece e pode montar equipamento, né, seja rádio, seja linear, né, sem o propósito comercial lá. Né, tem que ser de forma eventual ou artesanal, ok? Ou seja, aquela coisa, né, que você faz como hobby e não tem objetivo de comercializar, né? É o que fala no final aqui, ó. Sem propósito comercial, ok? Então, esses equipamentos artesanalmente feitos e sem esse objetivo comercial, né, de forma artesanal ou eventual, né, estão dispensados da homologação, ok? De toda forma, né, tudo isso você tem que ter uma relação de componentes, dados que você pode guardar numa ficha, ok? Como potência do equipamento, a tensão que ele trabalha, consumo, né, corrente, potência efetiva, né, que o equipamento vai transmitir, ok? Bandas que ele transmite, modos de operações. Isso você precisa ter por escrito, ok? Se a Anatel for na sua casa e encontrar um desses equipamentos artesanais, produzido de forma eventual, né, sem esse propósito comercial, você tem que ter essa ficha descritiva do equipamento, ok? Pelo menos com esses dados básicos, né, bandas que ele trabalha, potências, modos de operações, enfim. É uma ficha técnica do equipamento, tá bom? No mínimo. Eles podem pedir, você mostra essa ficha e sem problemas, tá? Nesse caso, ele está dispensado da homologação, tá bom? O artigo 14 fala o seguinte: a Anatel poderá determinar a alteração dos requisitos estabelecidos nesse regulamento, mesmo nos sistemas de operação, com a finalidade de otimizar o uso do espectro de radiofrequências. Bom, esse artigo 14 aqui, a Anatel poderá determinar alterações dos requisitos, significa o seguinte, né, que toda a nossa legislação, a qualquer momento, pode ser alterada, ok? Eles normalmente, né, a cada período de 5, 6, 7 anos, ou um pouco mais, eles mexem na legislação, ok? E normalmente para trazer novidades. Tá? Então, quando a Anatel for mexer na legislação, né, que fala aqui o artigo 14, ó, a Anatel poderá determinar alterações dos requisitos estabelecidos nesse regulamento. Então, só dessa forma. Ela não vai chegar com uma nova legislação, ela vai abrir consulta pública. Abrindo consulta pública, ela ouve os radioamadores, tá, e vem com uma nova legislação, ok? De repente, mudando alguns fatores, alguns itens, acrescentando algumas bandas a mais, ok? Então, tudo isso tem, né, uma forma pré-estabelecida para acontecer, ok? Não é do dia para a noite que muda um artigo, né? Eles têm todo um processo formal para fazer isso. Né? E a gente fica sabendo. Né? Eles colocam em consulta pública, a gente analisa, se manifesta, né? Eles têm um prazo para ouvir os radioamadores, normalmente um mês, ok? Depois eles finalizam a consulta pública, eles analisam as indicações aí dos radioamadores, né? Todos podem se manifestar, então, a Anatel analisa essa manifestação e vem com um resultado final, um texto final.
Bom, a gente vai dar mais um intervalo e já retornando. Lembrando os amigos que estamos para terem mais um ponto de encontro dos radioamadores, ok? Estará surgindo aqui na Zona Sul um novo ponto de encontro dos radioamadores. A gente aguarda só o amigo, né, finalizar lá o processo de acertos, né, e assim que ele bater o martelo, a gente divulga. Né, vai ser aos domingos, ok? Provavelmente na região de Santo Amaro, porém o local, horário, referências, a gente aguarda aí tudo isso ser finalizado, ok? Finalizando, a gente passa para os amigos, tá bom? E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
It's just a simple slider, 1 or 2. In the icons, I find that 1, 2, just a couple is enough to make a big difference. If you've listened to my IC7610 versus IC7300 video, audio comparison shootout video, you will have noted that the bass coming out, especially on AM broadcast, is significantly lower than the IC7610. So if you want a bassier sounding radio when you're listening to shortwave stations, would be best to go into the AM menu and adjust the bass. So I'll just clear that again with the quick menu, and we'll go out of that. So as I was talking about here, if you're big on listening to shortwave stations and you'd like to have a full sound, you might want to go in here and set that to 1 and give that a shot. I'm going to leave that like that because I do like listening to our local AM stations, and although this would also affect my AM operations, if I'm using the AM mode, I don't tend to do much AM transmitting and operating, basically because it's very, very hard on your station. So I'm very much an SSB guy, but I do a lot of AM shortwave listening. So I'm just going to boost that up to 1, and I'll let you know how it goes next time. Likewise, I don't recommend using the built-in audio high pass and low pass filters for any band. With the way the IF filter works and the fact this is an SDR, I actually don't really see the point to those features. I think they're mainly part of the legacy of the icon menu system. So we'll go out of that for now. In CW, you've got the RX high pass and low pass. There's no tone controls as expected. And FM, you also have your full RX high pass, low pass, RX bass. Same thing applies. Adjust it to how you like it. Or if you use an external speaker like I do, generally just leave it flat. So if we go back to TX, this is where the real fun is. You've got 3 options: SSB, AM, and FM. In SSB, I generally run my TX bass at 0 or -1, my TX treble at +2 to give a little bit more presence to my voice and help with intelligibility. I do have quite a deep voice after all. And this is where you set your default transmission bandwidths. You've got 3 options. We'll scroll down the page a little bit. No, we can't do that. You've got TX bandwidth wide, TX bandwidth mid, and then down the bottom you've got TX bandwidth narrow. Now I like to have my TX bandwidth wide at the stock at 100 to 2900. I'll just see if it's the default because I can't remember. It is. So I like to have it that way because that gives you 2.8 kilohertz worth of bandwidth, which isn't a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. It's definitely not ESSB, but it does give a very nice, very easily readable sound. The second option, TX, and that's great for rag chewing, I should add. The second option is the one I use most, TX bandwidth mid. So if we click on that or touch that for a second, and this is where I guess the quick menu thing doesn't help so much because every time you select an item, it does actually take you straight into the menu. So if I wanted to default wide, for instance, I'd have to hold down. That would be the only way. Anyway, so if we go into TX bandwidth, sorry, if I talk about TX bandwidth mid, and we're going to default it, the default is 300 to 2700. That gives you the standard 2.4 kilohertz bandwidth, which most of the radios in the last 20 years, most entry-level HF rigs, that's basically their default receive bandwidth. I like to open mine up a little bit, especially to help operators who have rigs that can hear a little bit higher. And so I like to increase mine to 2900. I leave the bass at 300, that filter, sorry. I forget the name of it now, but I leave that at 300. So that's the high pass, and the low pass, I leave at 2900. That's how I prefer. And the reason I do that is so that basically if someone has a receiver that can hear more than 2.4 kilohertz, they're not going to get a huge boomy signal, but they are going to hear a bit more presence in my voice. So that's why I like to increase it to 2900. It certainly would help with things like contests and de-expeditions to some degree. Now, TX bandwidth narrow. This is the one where, if you really want to get all your power into a just intelligible form, if you really need to work that rare DX or that really distant contest station, this is the one you want to use. This is that really tinny sound that you often hear contesters using. Now I'll just check it, go back out, give it a default, and I've left mine default for that exact reason. It transmits 2 kilohertz worth of bandwidth, which is actually quite a decent amount in terms of a narrow transmitter. If you go into it, you'll see that no, you can't decrease it anymore. So that's about as narrow as it goes, and I like to keep it that way just for those really rare ones. So that's my settings and advice for configuring your audio on IC7300. Now that advice applies both to the stock microphone, which sounds very, very good, and also to any external mics. Something like a higher mic, you do need to set settings elsewhere, such as the microphone gain, but they're not in this menu here. Now, you've got all the same in AM, you've got TX bass and treble. You don't have all the filters, you've just got the one standard filter. And in FM, once again, you've got TX bass and treble. I haven't played with FM, to be honest, on this radio at all, so I can't offer advice. I would just leave them flat, maybe increase treble a little bit in line with giving your voice that little bit of extra intelligibility. And the same goes for AM. I haven't played with it much. I have been told the radio does sound quite nice out of the box on AM, so I would probably recommend leaving it alone or just putting the treble up a little bit. So that's all of the tone control. In function, let's have a look. Go back to page 1. The radio actually remembers the last page you're on, which is really useful if you go and change settings. And you find you don't like the setting, because you can go straight back into the menu and you'll be there. The first one is the beep level. That's the level of the beep the radio makes when you press buttons and that sort of thing. I've never felt the need to change it off 50%. If we touch it, it does just go back up and down. It actually goes in smaller increments than 1%. You have to press it. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. You have to press it 3 times to make a difference, which is a little interesting. I wouldn't have thought you needed such fine beep control, but there you go. There's a beep level limit. I'd suggest leaving that on. Basically, the idea behind that is if you've got your receiver up really loud and you're wearing headphones, it's not going to give you a really big beep. Beep confirmation, that's for when you change a menu option or something. I leave that on. I've never felt the need to change any of the beeps, including the band edge beep. I think it's quite useful for the radio to tell you when you go past your band edge and you're at risk of, well, it won't let you transmit, but it lets you know you're not on an amateur band anymore. So we'll go to page 2. Now this first option here is RF SQL control. What that does is change what this inside knob here does. You can have, there's a few different options, so we'll have a look. I like the standard one, which is RF plus SQL, but I'll explain them all. I'm not actually sure what auto does, to be honest, so I'd have to check that. So I suspect it's something to do with when you go into FM and that sort of thing. It might change between a squelch and an RF gain. As I said, I've never felt the need to change it. But the main option that someone might be interested in is squelch. Now, when it's in squelch mode, all it does is operate as a squelch control for the whole, well, it's almost 360 degrees, let's just say 300 degrees of its operation. That could be useful if you just want to sit on one frequency and you've got high, to talk on your local net and you've got high noise. But I've never needed it. I like the default RF plus squelch. What that does is it basically centers the knob and gives it 2 functions when it's at 12 o'clock.
Não, para essa lei, ok? O artigo 15 fala o seguinte: período de vacância deste regulamento, a superintendência responsável pela administração e controle do uso do espectro de radiofrequências deverá expedir atos que trata o artigo 7º, observado o disposto no parágrafo único deste artigo. Então, esse período de vacância é o seguinte: antes dessa legislação entrar em vigor, você tinha uma outra legislação, ok? Que era a resolução 452/2006. E para essa lei aqui, ó, a 697/2018 entrar em ação, ele teve que esperar um período de transição, ok? Então, esse período foi justamente da finalização da resolução 452/2006 até essa norma entrar em vigor, efetivamente, ok? Esse período, né, da finalização de uma legislação para o início da vigência de uma outra norma que vai entrar em vigor, tem um termo de vacância, ok? A gente chama de vacatio legis, né? É o tempo, é um período, né, entre uma antiga norma e uma nova norma entrar em ação. Então, essa resolução foi publicada no dia 28 de agosto de 2018, porém, ela entraria em vigor 3 meses depois. Então, agosto, setembro, outubro, novembro. Então, a vacância, qual foi? 3 meses, ok? Então, nesse período de vacância, né, que fala o artigo 15º, é o período, né, entre uma norma que estava finalizando e a outra que entraria em vigor. E essa nova norma entrou em vigor no dia 28 de novembro, tá bom? Exatamente 3 meses após o período aí, foi esse lapso de tempo, né, a vacância da lei, ok? Então, só uma observação aí para os amigos, né, que fala aqui o artigo 15º, tá bom? Ó, durante o período de vacância desse regulamento, ou seja, ele foi publicado no Diário Oficial, né, só que entraria em vigor 3 meses depois, ok? Então, nesse caso, né, todo o espectro de radiofrequência tem o controle aí por parte da Anatel, tá bom? Observado aqui, né, os demais artigos, observado o disposto no parágrafo único do artigo, enfim. Então é isso aí. Aqui não tem muito o que se preocupar, é só uma formalidade da lei. Mas faz menção, né, o artigo 15º. Bom, eu estou liberando essa leitura da gravação aí para os amigos.
Agora são 6h31, 6h31. E lembrando, segunda-feira, iniciando mais um curso. Quem pretende fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando, tá bom? Inclusive, com a opção de amigos deficientes visuais também participarem do curso. Tranquilo? O curso para deficientes visuais é recente. Está indo aí para 4 anos. O curso de CW tem a idade da rodada alto-falante. Está indo aí para 23 anos agora, agosto de 2023, ok? Então, para deficientes visuais deu certo, né, essa técnica, esse mecanismo que a gente utilizou, surtiu efeito lá nas primeiras abordagens e a gente vem mantendo o curso aí para amigos deficientes visuais também. Então, quem quiser aí fazer promoção classe B, vai se preparando, ok? As aulas começam na segunda-feira, dia 2 de janeiro, e serão 4 meses de aulas. Janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. 3 opções. Você poderá fazer o curso via radiofrequência, poderá fazer via internet, a live, qualquer lugar do planeta, ok? E também poderá fazer via playlist. Tá? Essa última opção, via playlist, para quem não tem tempo nesses 2 horários. Primeira edição, 5 horas. Segunda edição, 17 horas, ok? Então, você escolhe aí a playlist e vai ter 24 horas por dia para fazer o curso. Então, escolhe um horário e boa sorte. Tendo em vista o seguinte, né? Qualquer uma das 3 opções, a qualquer momento você tira dúvidas com a gente na rodada, ok? Na primeira edição, na segunda, sábados, domingos, feriados, tá bom? Não tem tempo ruim, tem rodada, a qualquer momento você entra e tira dúvidas. Tá? Se for de legislação, também. Tá? Comando de rodada, também, ok? A gente ajuda aí os amigos, abre a norma, abre a legislação, a gente faz a leitura lá do artigo, junto aí contigo, ok? E explica aí, né, parte por parte lá do artigo, tá bom? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. 6h33. Lembrando Fim de semana normal, rodada alto-falante hoje, rodada alto-falante amanhã, tá bom? Não estaremos viajando, então estaremos aqui na frequência. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
We'll go here, go back to 7. As you can see, the tuner didn't come back on, so that's what that does. I actually like it on, well, thinking about it, I probably like it off because I use an external tuner. So the default is auto, and that's to remember your tuner preference per band. And if you don't use internal tuner, manual's good because then the tuner won't accidentally come on, sort of thing. Push to talk start once again. If you're using the tuner in the radio, you probably want to have that on. That's quite useful. If the radio decides that it can optimize your transmissions by adjusting the tuner, it will do that the minute you key up. So as I don't use an external tuner, I don't want that turned on. These settings apply to both the internal tuner, the 3-to-1 built into the radio, and the AH4 control. Now, if we go back to, if we look at the last option on this page, which is preset memory clear, what that does, and I don't think it'll do it, yeah, so it'll give you a warning. What that does is basically clear all the memories the radio has of your antenna. That'll mean it'll take a little bit longer to tune each time. So we'll go out of that one now. You've got your RIDI mark frequency and your RIDI width. These are both out of the box set up for RIDI operations, so I don't advise tweaking them. Let's have a look at page 4. Page 4, RIDI key polarity. Once again, that's on normal. I've never needed to change that. I don't recommend you do. Speech. This adjusts what basically the speech knob does. So the speech knob reads out where you are. Let's see if it does something here. It won't there. Let's go back to here. Oh, sorry, I had the volume down.
7.135 megahertz.
There we go. So as you can see, if you press speech, it will read out the frequency. I've had to turn the RF gain right down because you do have to have the volume knob up.
F0, 7.135 megahertz. LSB.
All right, so let's go back into the menu. And you can hear the beep now too because I've got the volume up. See how it went straight back to page 4? We'll go into speech. You can change the language between English and Japanese. I believe the latest firmware update actually includes a new language. You can change the speed. You can change the level. You can change, let's have a look at mode speech, whether it tells you your mode. And, oh, sorry, there's the speech level. I'm not actually sure what the S speech level means, but we'll have to look that one up one day. But there's your speech level. I actually find it's a bit low. So if I was going to use the feature, I'd probably recommend turning it up to, say, 75%. Let's have a listen to this.
F0, 7.135 megahertz. LSB.
It's a little disappointing it didn't read out the menu options I was on, but it's still useful for radio operation. I would say that what S level speech does is basically if you've got your volume turned right up, it makes sure it squelches your, basically it doesn't blast your ears out. So we'll go out of this option and we'll turn this down again. The speech lock switch lets you decide what this, when pressing the button, what the default operation is. In my case, I'd probably rather have it as lock. So I'm going to change it to lock because then I can lock my radio. Can't do it while I'm in the menu. The lock function lets you decide what locking it does. I've got young kids who love to turn the big knob. So for me, having it lock the main dial is my preferred option. I believe that's also the default. Let's have a look. Yep, that's the default. You can, however, have it lock the entire panel, which once again may be good for young kids, but it won't stop them rotating. It won't stop them rotating the volume knob or the squelch knob. So you'll still have to make sure the young kids or the PESC or the cat hasn't knocked those sort of knobs. We'll leave it like that. On page 5, you've got your memo pad quantity. The standard's 5. As we saw on the screen before, there wasn't a whole lot to see there anyway, so I wouldn't recommend increasing it. The main dial tuning speed, auto tuning speed, On these radios, they have a variable tuning speed, much like automobiles these days have variable steering. When, you know, if you move the steering wheel a little bit, it doesn't do much. If you move it a lot, it does a lot. That's what this does. So you can see it's quite slow, but if I twist it really fast, it starts jumping all over the place. Turn that tuner off again. So I've left it as high. I think that's a good speed, but but you can change that if you want to, or you can turn it off completely if you want it to be completely linear. I love high. I recommend keeping it that way. Mic up and down speed. That's if you're to use the mic up and down buttons. Let's have a look how they function. So they're going 0.05 kilo. Oh, well, let me get this right. I always get this confused. They're going, what am I on? 7 kilohertz, 7100 kilohertz. So they're in the hertz. So this is going up and down 50 hertz at a time. So you can change that if you want. And if we go to slow, no, it still goes up and down the same. Well, I'm a bit confused as to what that setting actually does, to be honest. So we'll leave it at fast. It probably makes a difference if you were to hold the buttons down, actually. If you were to hold it down like that, it'll make a difference then, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, so it is, when you hold the button down, it's slightly slower now. Having just done that experiment, I recommend leaving that as fast. Quick RIT or transmit shift clear is off. You can turn that on. What does that do? We've got a clear button right here. Let's find out. So if I press RIT and then I adjust it, now I can turn it on and off and it will remember my RIT setting. What happens if I hold it down? It won't clear. I can then just press the clear button. Sorry, I'll do that again. I can press the clear button and it won't clear it. You actually have to hold it down just for a brief second, about a second. Now, if we go in and we turn the quick clear on, let's have a look. Turn the RIT on, and if I hold this down, it clears it. But it also then goes and adjusts your main VFO to include where your RIT setting was. I don't like that one little bit, and so I have that off. I remember now playing with that, and I don't like it at all. The default's off, and I'm keeping it that way. We're on page 6 now of function, and you've got the notch switch, what it does on SSB and AM. Auto or manual notch. And you can basically say, what does pressing it do? Does it always do auto, or does it always do manual, or can it do auto or manual? So I'll give you a demonstration. And we'll put a little bit of signal in there, turn the volume down a little bit. But when you press the notch, if you press it once, press it once, it goes to auto notch. Press it twice, it goes to narrow notch. Press it the third time, it goes off. If you hold it down, it will go to manual and bring up your notch position and your width. If you were to go into function and change that to just be auto, all it does is go between auto and manual notch. Holding it down does nothing. So in my mind, there's not a huge amount of benefit to changing these settings. I'm a big fan of the auto of the notch button. You may have heard that in my earlier videos, and I think ICOM got it perfect with these settings. SSB CW synchronous tuning. I'm not exactly sure what that does, to be honest, but I turned it on the IC7610 and I liked it, so I'm going to turn it on here. I didn't even know it was there. I believe it helps your receiver tune into the receive station. You've got your CW setting, which is your normal side, the normal sideband you're listening to, and that's set to LSB. That's the default. You can change it to upper sideband, but you might get that might make things a little bit hard when you're trying to work everyone else on LSB. It's up to you. I'm sure you can work around it, but I leave it as normal. I'm not a big CW op, if I'm being honest. I can copy my call at 30 words a minute. I was pretty impressed with that. I learned that in a night. So page 7, Screen capture when you press the power switch. I love this feature. By default, it's actually off. When it's on, what you can do is take a picture of what's on the screen and save it to the SD card. Just like that. I recommend turning that on. It lets you document things, document settings in case you forget later. You can change the file type. PNG is the one you want to go for. BMP or bitmap takes up a lot of space. PNG is an open source file standard, royalty free, and it compresses the file a bit using less SD card memory. So I completely recommend using PNG. I'm pretty sure that's the default too. Yes, it is. Keyboard type, full keyboard or 10 key. Well, I've never plugged a keyboard into this radio, and it's not particularly easy. Although I do think that's referring to the on-screen keyboard. I've always left it as full keyboard. To be honest, there's not many times that I've had to use a keyboard on this radio. So I've entered my call sign maybe, and that's about it. Calibration marker, you can turn that on or off. Let's have a look at that.
Vamos falar aqui sobre operação remota, operação automática também, né? Na legislação fala aqui, ó, operação automática ou remota. Bom, para quem não sabe, né, tanto na primeira abordagem que eles falam de operação automática, ou no parágrafo único do artigo 6º, né, que já fala aqui de conexão remota, ok? Só uma explicação. Então, o que seria uma conexão remota? Uma operação automática. Você até pode, né, estar na estação, mas normalmente a operação remota subentende que você está numa certa distância, pode ser um quarteirão da sua casa, como você pode estar do outro lado do planeta, ok? Aí você está no Japão, você vai ter uma interface, né, conectada aí aos equipamentos. Você pode se valer também da internet das coisas, né, para fazer um rotor ligar, para fazer esse rotor funcionar, para fazer esse rotor girar para um lado, para o outro, né, ligar lá alguns equipamentos a mais, além do rádio, ok? E tudo isso pela internet e longe, né? Então isso seria uma operação remota, ok? Tem que ter alguns acessórios, né? Como eu falei, uma interface e mais algumas possibilidades do próprio rádio, né? De ter essa conexão com a interface, ok? Depois com a internet e você partir para uma operação automática ou remota, tranquilo? Então, sobre a operação remota, tem um artigo aqui que dá alguns limites para o radioamador, ok? No nosso caso aqui, Brasil, né? Como que a lei entende a operação remota? Em relação à potência, ok? Até que potência você pode usar, né, numa operação remota? Quer dizer, a sua estação vai estar num limite de potência, ok? Qual potência? A gente vai ver agora, olha lá. O artigo 6º fala o seguinte: a potência média na saída do transmissor de uma estação terrestre de operação automática do serviço de radioamador deve estar limitada a 100 watts na fração de tempo que o sistema permanece ativo. Entre parênteses, está aqui, ó, duty cycle, observados os limites específicos estabelecidos no artigo 5º. Tá? Então, sobre a operação remota, é isso que eu estava falando, né? Você pode operar de longe na sua estação ou operação terrestre automática, né? Essa designação terrestre, de repente é um satélite, né? Pode ter uma transmissão do espaço, por que não, né? Então, aqui o artigo é bem diretivo, né? Potência média na saída de um transmissor de estação terrestre, ok? Tem que estar na Terra, tranquilo? De operação automática do serviço de radioamador deve estar limitado a 100 watts, tá bom? Quando o sistema estiver ativo, duty cycle. Esse duty cycle subentende potência máxima aí do equipamento no estágio final de RF com especificação de potência RMS, ok? Ou seja, 100 watts no estágio final de RF, potência real, ok? Potência efetiva, 100 watts, tranquilo? Tá, não é pico. não é PP, não é IHF, nenhum outro tipo de medição, né, que não seja aquela real, ok? Então, 100 watts reais, 100 watts RMS. Tranquilo? Não mais do que 100 watts, ok?
Bom, a gente dá uma pausa. Essa primeira parte aqui da legislação, quem quiser dar uma olhada, artigo 6º, ok? Artigo 6º, resolução 697/2018. Lembrando, você pega tudo isso no Google, ok? Esquenta a cabeça de imprimir, de pôr no papel, é perda de tempo. Então, no seu computador, tablet, celular, você entra no site da Anatel, ou melhor, vai no Google, tá bom? Melhor do que o site da Anatel, o Google, né? Coloca essa norma no Google, né, e só coloca Anatel na frente, ok? Essa lei aparece em 1 segundo na tua frente, tranquilo? Bom, oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
So yeah, that's fine to set as 5C. Now the way to make the computer and your external amplifier talk all nicely is to have Civ transceive set to on, which is the default setting, I believe. Let's have a look. It is. You've got Civ USB to remote transceive address. I've left that alone. I've never needed to change that. You've got Civ output for antenna. I've never felt the need to change that either. So if you've got some accessories that want to know which antenna you're on and that sort of thing, you might need to turn that on. For Civ USB port, I have it as unlinked from remote, and for Civ USB baud rate, I have 115200, and that lets you use the spectrum scope on the RSBA1 software. Civ Echo Back, you want to have that on, otherwise some digital mode software gets a bit confused and won't work properly. So they're my settings for the Civ menu. USB serial function, you want that set to Civ. Sometimes people use it for RIDI decode, but most people, and when it's set to RIDI decode, basically it swings your virtual serial port between two states and lets you do RIDI decoding and RIDI encoding, in the radio rather than as an audio frequency. I don't see the need to do that. I just leave it as Civ. Civ lets you use all the digital mode software, not just some RTDY stuff. So on page 4 of connectors, we've got USB send. I left that off because once again that refers to the RIDI option. You've got this function. You've got USB keying for CW. I've left that off, and USB keying for RIDI. I've left that off as well. As I said, I drive my radio with audio frequency for modulation, so you don't need to set any of those. The next menu is display. In display, you've got the screensaver. I'd actually recommend setting the screensaver to 15 minutes. If you do find you need a longer screensaver, feel free to change it. Let's default it. The default's 60 minutes. I recommend 15 minutes. If it does annoy you by going off too quickly, just go and change it back. It can never hurt to turn an LCD this way off. Opening message. That's whether or not basically it shows you an opening message with your call sign. I'll put my call sign in here. Here's that keyboard I was telling you about. This is the full keyboard rather than the 10 key one. I found this keyboard quite nice to use and easy to enter my call, so I've already done that, and I recommend, as I said before, leaving it as full keyboard. Power check on. That basically does the radio do a check when you first turn it on. I believe that's the default setting. Let's have a look. It is, and I don't see a need to turn that off. I want my radio checked when I power it on. The last one is display language. At the moment, you've got English and Japanese. I believe some firmware updates have more, but I speak English and I certainly don't speak Japanese, so that's what I'm going to stick with. If we go down one more, you've got your time setting. You can set your date and time. That I believe is wrong at the moment. It is. It's out by about an hour, so we'll put that down. Oh, sorry. No. We'll go back. Whoa, this is a tricky one. UTC offset. You can, I'll leave that alone actually. Basically, we've got daylight savings time in Australia now, so we're back an hour. Now notice there, when I went down and went return, it didn't set it. So you actually have to press the set button to get that to happen. So we've done that. You can actually set the radio, I believe, so that you have the radio on UTC, and then you can just change the UTC offset, but I haven't seen any advantage to doing that on this radio. There is on the IC7610. SD card, you can load your settings that you've previously saved, save your settings, view some info. You can view the screen captures on the radio. You don't need to use a computer. You can do firmware updates, format, or unmount. Whenever you use an SD card for the first time with a device that's not a computer, I recommend putting the SD card in and then formatting it on that device. That way you know it's set up perfectly for the device, and I've never had a computer not recognize it. When you remove an SD card from the radio, you should go into this menu, which is Menu, Set, SD card, page 2, Unmount, and unmount it first. That way you'll know that the data is saved to your SD card. In practice, I haven't had any problems just pulling it out, but that's the best way of doing it. I do recommend you do that, or turn the radio off. If you turn the radio off, that does the same thing as unmounting. So while we're here, I'm going to save my settings. There's some settings I'd saved previously. I'll go New File. I can't be bothered with a name for it, so I'll just hit Enter. Do I want to save it? Yes, I do. Completed, done. Now, if I had to return the radio or factory default it for some reason, I can just go and load my settings straight back in, and it's very quick. Which is the latest one? Let's have a look. 2018, press that, and you can load all the settings, or you can select just the settings you want. I'm not actually going to load it, but it's all there, and it loads very, very quickly, so that's great. SD card info, that shows you the free space. As you can see, I've got over 7.2 gig free. So that's going to let me record 132 hours of voice. That's pretty cool. And that's only an 8 gig card. Screen capture view.
Você já fez ou viu alguém fazendo o exame de polissonografia? Já percebeu que são conectados vários fios à pessoa? Eles não doem, pois são somente sensores que captam nossas ondas cerebrais, bem como o movimento dos nossos olhos e das pernas durante o sono. O oxímetro do dedo vai medir o nível de oxigênio no sangue e a cinta no tórax avalia a nossa respiração. Para cada parâmetro estudado, há necessidade de um canal de medição diferente. Então, basicamente, os parâmetros avaliados na polissonografia são atividade cerebral medida pelo eletroencefalograma, atividade muscular medida pelo eletromiograma, é medida também a nossa atividade cardíaca, os movimentos oculares são medidos pelo eletrooculograma, a oxigenação no sangue medida pelo oxímetro no dedo. Além disso, avaliamos a nossa respiração, o ronco e a posição corporal durante o exame. O exame vai registrar os ciclos e os estágios do nosso sono e a respiração, gerando diversos parâmetros gráficos que serão analisados por um especialista. Esta análise gera um laudo que vai determinar se a pessoa tem ou não alguma alteração do sono e ajudar ao médico a determinar qual o seu diagnóstico e seu melhor tratamento. Para saber mais, consulte o seu otorrino.
There you go. We're viewing a screen capture. Now, when you're viewing a screen capture, the power light flashes to let you know that what's on the screen isn't actually what you're doing. So we'll go out of that. Now, to go out of it, I believe you just have to touch the screen anywhere. That's what I thought. We'll go down one more. Firmware update. Very easy to do on an icon. I won't give you a demonstration now. We'll go out of that. And in others, there's just a few things like information, what version your radio is on, touchscreen calibration. I hate it when I press this. You press the little dots. Now, this is something I've never found the need to do, and the only time I've ever done it is when I've been recording one of these videos. And every time I press it, I wish it gave me a warning. I really did. Reset. We'll press it because I'm pretty sure this will give me a warning. You can do partial reset or full reset. So there is, just pressing the button is not going to wipe your radio. You've got emergency mode, and this is an interesting one. It doesn't ring a bell or get an ambulance to come around to your car. What it does is let you expand your tuner range. If you press that, it will expand your tuner range. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the button, it will wipe your radio. If you press the but It says expands max matching ratio for emergencies. Output power is limited to max 50 watts. Danger, never get close to 210 during checks. So the idea basically is that if for some reason you're stuck out in the bush just with your radio and all you've got is some random wire antenna, you can halve your power output but increase the tuning range of your radio significantly. So that's a useful feature even for general day-to-day use, although because I use an outboard tuner and have an amplifier anyway, I don't use that. So that's basically all there is to the settings menu on the IC7300.
Observados os limites específicos estabelecidos no artigo 5º. Tá? Esses limites falam de limites que você tem por bandas, né? Tem bandas que você pode operar com 1 watt só. Pô, mas 1 watt só é potência máxima 100 watts. Tá bom? Qual é a frequência? Tá aqui, ó. Deixa lá na banda de 2.200 metros, eu já te falo. Tá aqui, ó. De 2.200 metros, frequência de 135,7 a 137,8 kHz, ok? Então, faixa de 2.200 metros vai ter lá 1 watt, tá bom? Um sim, tá bom? Outro limite de potência, 630 metros também, 472 kHz, 5 watts. Outra banda de 60 metros, também, né? Faixa de 60 metros, 5.351,5 kHz, somente 25 watts. Tá? Então, 2.200 metros, 1 watt, 630 metros, 5 watts, 60 metros, 25 watts. Então, tem limites também, né? Quando é transmissão via satélite, algumas frequências têm limites de potência, especificamente essas 3 aqui, né, que eu falei, tem as suas respectivas potências, 1 watt, 5 watts, 25 watts, ok? 25 watts, e assim por diante. Tá? Saindo desses limites de potências por banda, né, é a potência da classe do radioamador, ok? Radioamador classe C, né, potência máxima para ele 100 watts. Como o radioamador classe C pode fazer operação remota, né, operação automática, ou as conexões pela internet, o interface, internet das coisas, tá no limite para o radioamador classe C, ok? Então, para ele não vai ter problema. Agora, para um radioamador classe B, ou para um radioamador classe A, né, que poderiam operar com mais potência, de toda forma vai estar limitado nos 100 watts, ok? Então, o artigo 6º limita o radioamador classe B e o radioamador classe A a não usar mais de 100 watts nessas operações remotas, ok? Quem achava, né, poderia estar no Japão, ou na China, ou no Canadá, ou na Espanha, né, e falar aqui do Brasil, qualquer lugar do mundo, e jogar linear em cima, não pode, olha lá. Vai ter um limite aqui pela lei, hein? 100 watts, tá bom? Bom, vamos em frente. O parágrafo único fala o seguinte: considera-se estação automática aquela que prescinde da presença do titular ou da conexão remota com ele para o seu funcionamento. Então, normalmente você vai ter uma estação com operação ou conexão remota, né, pela internet, com interface, com esse objetivo, né, para você usar a estação de longe. Então, você pode até estar, né, vez ou outra na estação, olha lá, né, aquela que prescinde da presença do titular, ou não, né, ou de longe ele fala com ela, ou com conexão remota, ok? Para o seu funcionamento. Então, você pode estar na estação, pode não estar na estação, né, com uma conexão remota, mas nesse caso a potência, né, fica limitada aos 100 watts, ok? Então, o artigo 6º, resolução 697/2018, vai te dar esse limite também para operação remota. Você está na estação e pode usar algumas bandas de frequência na sua limitação por conta de classe, maravilha. Vai fazer conexão remota ou operação à distância, com conexão pela internet, usando interface ou internet das coisas, 100 watts, tá bom? Esse é o limite. Tranquilo? Então tá aí. Hoje, nosso papo aqui foi só o artigo 6º e só essa possibilidade. Bom, deixa eu dar um bom dia aqui. Nosso amigo Márcio.
Bom, são 7h04, 7h04. Lembrando os amigos que hoje tivemos a última aula do curso, ok? Na segunda-feira, começando aí um outro curso. Quem quiser fazer com a gente, se habilita, ok? Você poderá fazer o curso via radiofrequência, via internet, na live e via playlist. Tá bom? Serão 7 turmas. Lembrando, 2 são para deficientes visuais, ok? Na primeira edição, aulas às 5 horas. Na segunda edição, aulas às 17 horas. Tranquilo? Serão 7 turmas. Você vê qual horário é melhor. Tá bom? Segundas, quartas e sextas, primeira edição. Segundas, quartas e sextas, segunda edição, já são 2 turmas. Terças, quintas e sábados, terceira edição. Terças, quintas e sextas, quarta edição. E depois, deficientes visuais, primeira. Deficientes visuais, segunda edição. Já são 6 turmas. A 7ª turma, via playlist, ok? A diferença é que via playlist você escolhe o seu horário. Tá? Vai ter 24 horas por dia para fazer uma escolha, ok? E qualquer uma das 7 opções, você tira dúvidas com a gente na rodada. Sábados, domingos, feriados, primeira, segunda edição, não tem chabu, ok? Tem rodada, entra, faz a pergunta. Em qualquer lugar do planeta, lembrando, você faz o curso com a gente, ok? E também tira dúvidas, tranquilo? Então, boa sorte. Lembrando, 4 meses de aula. Janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com um bom dia. Ô Luiz, bom dia. PY2EXU Uniforme, Lima November. Grande abraço, Luiz. Como está o amigo aí? Tudo em paz, tranquilo? Um ótimo final de ano e uma boa entrada aí de 2023, ok? Muita saúde, muitas realizações, muito QSJ, tudo de bom aí pro amigo. PY2 Uniforme Lima November, Rafar. Adiante.
Ok, que é a Célia falou. Bom dia. Papai Yankee 2XU, essa de PY2 Uniforme Lima November. Aqui para Rafar. Tá bom, Paulo? Bom dia, forte abraço, recomendações. Aí todo chat família. Espero ter tudo bem por aí. Aí a turma pela internet, rádio escutas, bom dia, forte abraço também. E vamos que vamos, né, Paulo? E TKS aí pelas recomendações aí. E eu mesmo, hein? Aí, ó, uma boa entrada em 2023, né? O ano transcorra tudo tranquilo, né, Paulo? E aí, ok, o Paulo, contigo novamente, é 32, né?
Ok. PY2 Uniforme Lima November, Luiz Rafar. Obrigado aí pelos votos. Tá bom, Luiz. E agora, contagem regressiva, né? Para acabarmos aí 2022. E né, que seja bom para todo mundo, né? Todo o planeta, né, Luiz? Principalmente lá entre a Ucrânia e a Rússia, né? Que o pessoal está sofrendo muito, não só os russos, ok? Mas também ucranianos, né? Enfim. Guerra nunca é bom para ninguém, né? Sempre o povo que paga o pato, né? Tem 2 cabecinhas ali que resolvem brigar, né? Mesmo que a culpa ali maior tenha sido da Rússia, né? Mas a gente espera que dê tudo certo e acabe essa guerra, né, Luiz? e o povo vive em paz, né? Quem paga o pato? Normalmente é o povo, né? Enfim, vamos torcer para o fim da guerra, né? E fome no planeta, né? Em vários países aí, né? Tem muita gente passando fome, enfim. Que seja melhor aí para todo mundo. E para nós também no Brasil, né, Luiz? E para nós, radioamadores, também, né? Enfim, para todo mundo aí. Bom, PY2 Uniforme, Lima November, Rafar, adiante.
Que a Célia falou, Papa Yankee 2. XU, essa de PY2 Uniforme Lima November, Luiz pro Rafael no retorno. É isso aí, Paulo. É que tenhamos aí um ano um pouco melhor, né, Paulo? Melhor que é complicado. Você sabe que a diversidade tem, né? Mas que seja mais brando, né? Seja mais brando aí que toda essa, né? Toda essa tanto a guerra quanto a crise que desenrola depois, tudo isso cesse, né, Paulo? Ninguém ganha nada com isso, né? Tem nexo, né? E é o povo, né? O povo tirando, né? O povo que acaba fazendo pato, né? No caso lá, na Ucrânia, tem energia, frio, né? Sem aquecimento, né? É complicado, viu? Passar esse até fevereiro, né? Vai aí tem um bocado aí de tempo ainda de bastante frio para aquele lado, né, Paulo? Complicado, viu? Tá bom, Paulo. É isso aí, hein? Contagem regressiva, hein? Ei, ai, ai. Tá bom, Paulo. É isso aí, hein? Ok. Paulo, passei rapidinho aqui para dar um alô, mas permaneço aí até as 10 aí. Permaneço, devo deixar o rádio ligado. Qualquer coisinha eu dou mais um pitaco aqui, hein? Tá bom, Paulo? Entrei rapidinho aqui para ligar a station e já falei, vou cumprimentar o Paulo e já vou fazer aqui um café para tentar acordar, hein? Tá bom, Paulo? Para tentar acordar, hein? Dormindo ainda. Tá bom, Paulo? TKS por aí por enquanto. Essa de PY2, Uniforme Lima November para Papa Yankee 2 XU.
Ok. PY2 Uniforme, Lima November, Luiz Rafar. Maravilha, Luiz. Depois retorna aí. E a gente vai lá para o espaço, hein? Vamos falar do James Webb. Né? E a internet, né? E a internet aí com os absurdos de sempre, hein? Eu vi uma notícia urgente. Depois você comenta. Olha lá. Urgente. Né? A Via Láctea vai se... Como que é? Como que ele pôs na chamada ali? Atenção, urgente. A Via Láctea vai bater na galáxia de Andrômeda. Ele fez uma chamada catastrófica, né? E quem não sabe fica assustado, né? Quando vai ser isso? Daqui a alguns milhões de anos, né? Mas ele não fala isso. Esse pequeno detalhe ele não fala, né, Luiz? Daqui a alguns milhões de anos, né, Via Láctea se encontra com a galáxia vizinha aqui da nossa galáxia, né? Ele faz uma chamada, quem não sabe, pensa que é amanhã, né? Ixi, vai morrer todo mundo. Mas né, até lá, né, já tivemos aí muitos e muitos milênios para mudar aqui de casa. E outra, né? Esse entrosamento nem sempre destrói planetas, estrelas, né? Porque o espaço é muito grande entre elas, né, Luiz? Mas o amigo lá fez uma chamada ali, nossa, quem ouviu ali, abobrinha, né? Ele só deixou um detalhe de fora, né? Quanto tempo demora para isso acontecer, né? Só um pequeno detalhe, né, Luiz? Mas ele fez a chamada, né? Aí todo mundo vai lá e milhões, né, de gente lá vendo quando vai ser isso. Hoje a internet, infelizmente, tem essas chamadas aí maliciosas, né? E o pessoal que não conhece vai lá e acho que vai ser a semana que vem, né? Mas tá bom, vai lá, Luiz, toma seu café e depois te aguardo aí, tá bom? PY2 Uniforme, Lima November, adiante.
Ok, que a Célio falou, Papa Yankee 2, XU, FLP2, Uniforme Lima November, Luiz por Rafael no retorno. Paulo, tem uma situação muito parecida. Uma chamada meio que cabulosa, né, Paulo? Pra chamar a atenção, né? Pra chamar a atenção da turma, né? Hoje na internet, o logaritmo aí já se você já procura uma ou duas coisas ali, depois vem uma avalanche de coisas sobre. Eles aproveitam, colocam só palavras-chave, né? E com um tom de emergência, né, Paulo? Mas não, se bobear até bilhões de anos, né? Tanto a pequena quanto a grande nuvem de Magalhães aí vão se chocar primeiro. Assustar mais ainda, né, Paulo? Isso também daqui a alguns milhões, né, Paulo? Nossos satélites, né, da Via Láctea. Então, mais próximos aí, né? Eita, uma palavra. A turma é dose. Tá, vamos, Paulo. A gente retorna aí.
Ok. Vai lá, Luiz. E na volta, traz um cafezinho pra gente, hein? Bom, 7h15. Mais alguém?
There's quite a bit. If you're in channel mode or what channel you're on, yeah, there's a lot of information here. Your main frequency indicators going to work beautifully. You really need to have that tuned. So find somebody in your area, and this goes true for CB radio as well. If you don't have a properly tuned antenna on your CB, you're not going to get range. You're not going to get reception.
Agora são 7h25. E a gente lembra os amigos que setembro temos aí um encontro marcado em Capela do Alto. Vai ser no segundo domingo de setembro, encontro de radioamadores, PX, corujas, simpatizantes do hobby, todos convidados, ok? Vai ser uma churrascada, temos sorteio de equipamentos, feirinha de eletroca, enfim. Vai ser um dia inteiro ali de atividades e todos convidados, ok? Mais para frente a gente passa detalhes lá do evento e só deixar anotado aí, segundo domingo de setembro, ok? Até lá a gente vai divulgando os detalhes lá do evento e todos convidados, tá bom? Lembrando, Capela do Alto, então 130 quilômetros de São Paulo, dá para você ir com 4, 5 amigos aí num carro, achando a gasolina, a pedágio, fica bem em conta e não pesa para ninguém, ok? Então deixa agendado aí que logo, logo acontecendo, tá bom? Hoje foi a nossa última aula do curso de CW. Quem perdeu, pega na playlist. E segunda-feira, começando outro curso, ok? É aquilo que eu falei, né? Aqui é não stop aqui. Acaba um curso no sábado, segunda-feira, começa outro. Serão mais 4 meses de aulas, janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. 3 opções. Você poderá fazer o curso via radiofrequência, via internet com a live ou via internet playlist, tá bom? Essa última opção, playlist, você escolhe o melhor horário, ok? E boa sorte. Oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
Welcome to Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. To all new hands, this is Kilo Fox Zero, Colorado Boy.
I'm Bob Schmidt, WA9FBO. a ham since 1962 and an engineer since 73, so I qualify as an old timer. But I've been playing around with repeaters for a very long time, having gotten involved in college. So we're going to talk about repeaters and what they are and how they work, and basically throw a bunch of words at you so that you'll know what we're talking about when the rest of us are making trips to the site or working on the repeaters or doing something like that. Yep, we got more coming? All right.
Come on in.
There's a spare chair too. Okay, let's see. First of all, I brought some slides that depict other clubs, and notice they have the word repeater in their name. There's a lot of clubs built around repeaters. This club does not have the word repeater in its name, but we are basically here to support many repeaters and a linked system. But just to give you an idea, this is one that I belonged to years ago when I was living in Milwaukee. Here's another repeater club. Here's another repeater club. There are lots of clubs whose sole aim is maintain that system. Okay, this is one thing that it's very handy to have because repeaters are regional. They tend to cover areas, perhaps cities, maybe counties. A linked system might go further. So since we have systems all over the place, you'll want a guide or a directory or a map of some sort. You can purchase things like this from the ARRL and other organizations. There are maps available online typically, so depending on where you are in the state, you can see where the repeaters are that you're closest to and the ones that you can use.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen hier auf meinem YouTube-Kanal. Heute stelle ich euch mal einen Transceiver vor, den ich persönlich schon seit fast 2 Jahren im Einsatz habe, als meinen Reisetransceiver, Unterwegs-Transceiver. Und zwar handelt es sich dabei um den MCHF oder UHSDR oder auch RS918. Das Ding hat viele Namen, das liegt daran, dass er eine etwas längere Geschichte hinter sich hat. Ja, und das ist, der ist hier drin in meinem Paket und ich stelle den euch vor, weil er mich jetzt nach 2 Jahren verlässt. Ich werde ihn verkaufen. Das ist also auch ein kleines Verkaufsvideo und ja, ich werde mir dann für nächstes Jahr ein neues Reiseradio holen. Welches das ist, das steht noch nicht so ganz fest. Da sind 2 im Moment in der engeren Auswahl, aber da werde ich euch dann auch natürlich von berichten. Ja, vielleicht ganz kurz noch vorab. Da hier drin in diesem kleinen Paket ist der Transceiver. Wenn ich da unterwegs bin, nehme ich meistens noch 3 andere Sachen mit. Das ist zum einen hier mein Antennenkoffer. Hier ist die HFB1-Antenne drin und Antennenkabel 10 Meter. Dann habe ich meinen Logbuchcomputer, so einen Mini-Laptop, der ist hier drin. Und ich habe dann noch dabei einen 10 Ampere-Stunden Akku, der sieht so aus, ein LiFePO 4 Akku und damit wird dann alles mit Strom versorgt. Also insgesamt eine sehr kompakte kleine Sache, die man relativ bequem transportieren kann. Ich würde mal sagen, vom Gewicht her vielleicht so 4, 5, sagen wir mal 5 Kilo oder die das Ganze wiegt. Das kann man gut transportieren, ist relativ klein, passt in den Rucksack rein und dann kann man damit schon einiges reißen. Aber um das Gesamtpaket soll es heute nicht gehen, sondern um den Transceiver und deswegen packen wir den mal aus und schauen uns den mal genauer an. Ja, während wir das Paket hier mal auspacken, erzähle ich euch vielleicht auch so ein bisschen noch zur Geschichte des Gerätes. Vorab ganz kurz für all diejenigen, die mich jetzt fragen werden, hey, was ist das für eine tolle Tasche? Das ist eine Tasche, die kommt eigentlich aus dem Bereich der Drohnen, für kleine Drohnen und die habe ich zweckentfremdet und da ist jetzt mal ein Transceiver drin. Ich verlinke die euch aber auf jeden Fall natürlich auch unten in der Beschreibung. Ja, so machen wir mal auf. So sieht es in der Tasche innen drin aus. Die einzelnen Sachen, die hier drin sind, holen wir mal gerade raus. Da ist zum einen der Transceiver selber. Der wurde entwickelt von einem britischen Funkamateur, ich glaube Mike Zero November Kilo Alpha, unter dem Namen MCHF als Eigenbauprojekt. Das heißt, man konnte bei dem die Platine oder kann bei dem auch immer noch die Platine kaufen, die Bauteile kaufen, lötet sich alles selber zusammen und hat dann im Prinzip einen kleinen, kompakten SDR-Transceiver. Dann wurde das Ganze aufgegriffen, zum Beispiel vom Amateurfunk Ortsverband, Deutschen Amateurfunk-Ortsverband in Sulingen. Die haben eine neue Firmware dafür entwickelt und pflegen auch jetzt noch die aktuelle Firmware und den Bootloader für das Projekt, haben den Softwarefunktionsumfang sehr stark erweitert und das Ganze umgetauft in UHSDR. Das hier ist aber wiederum ein ganz anderes Gerät. Das hier kommt aus China, ist also ein Klon oder Nachbau, wenn man so möchte, des ursprünglichen Projektes und wurde dort halt schon, oder man kann es in China komplett zusammengebaut kaufen. Man muss selber nichts mehr löten. Und das Ganze auch preislich sehr, sehr günstig zu einem Preis, den eigentlich die Einzelteile alleine schon kosten. Von daher ist das eine sehr, sehr, sehr rentable Sache, wenn man ein schmales Budget hat und nicht so sehr davor zurückschreckt, so einen Klon zu kaufen. Hat das Ganze den Namen RS900.
Agora são 7h33. E passando uma informação bem interessante para os amigos. Estamos aguardando a confirmação de um novo ponto de encontros. Tá? Provavelmente vai surgir na Zona Sul de São Paulo, ok? Mais uma feirinha de radioamadorismo. Temos algumas, como Ermelino Matarazzo, Pacaembu, e agora, né, em breve, vai surgir uma em Santo Amaro, ok? Só aguardando lá os amigos confirmarem, e assim que bater o martelo, a gente passa o local, o endereço, referenciais para você chegar nesse novo point, ok? Então, assim que eles confirmarem, eu passo para os amigos, tá bom? Isso é bom, né? Quanto mais pontos de encontros de radioamadores, melhor. Né? Como mais rodadas, como mais repetidores, como mais radioamadores, enfim. Né? Tudo cresce e tudo vai tendo aí mais espaço para esses eventos. Então, é muito bem-vinda E vamos aguardar aí a confirmação do amigo, eu passo adiante, ok? Ele só me passou aí que já está em tratativas nesse local, tá bom? E passando que deu tudo certo, eu informo os amigos. A ideia é que esse evento seja todos os domingos, aqui na Zona Sul de São Paulo, na região de Santo Amaro, ok? Aonde a gente vai falar em breve, tranquilo? Então aguarde essa novidade que é bem-vinda. E falando em novidades, segunda-feira começa o nosso curso, hein? Eu estou martelando bastante, né? Porque momentos finais de 2022. Amanhã teremos rodado, ok? Normal, né? Porque é o dia primeiro dia do ano. A gente vai ficar na folga. Não, negativo, hein? Amanhã tem rodada normalmente, ok? Então, quem quiser fazer o curso com a gente, se prepara. Serão 3 opções. Você poderá fazer o curso via radiofrequência. 1. Poderá fazer o curso via internet, com a live. 2. Qualquer lugar do planeta, ok? E via playlist, internet também. 3. Tá? A última opção é interessante para quem não consegue fazer o curso aí com a gente nos horários programados. Primeira edição, 5 horas. Segunda edição, 17 horas, ok? Se não der de jeito nenhum, né, faz via playlist. Tá? É o curso completo, 50 videoaulas, e a qualquer momento você tira dúvidas com a gente, tá bom? E outra vantagem, né, você tem as aulas aí para fazer uma interpretação novamente. Fez uma aula, não entendeu, repete, faz uma revisão de aula, uma terceira vez, tá bom? Então, essa é a vantagem da playlist. Você pode fazer cada aula aí quantas vezes quiser, ok? Tirando dúvidas, fazendo treino, fazendo ditado na parte final, né, em 3 etapas, né? Light, intermediário e velocidade da prova. Tranquilo? Então, boa sorte e vamos em frente. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
Off, der schaltet nur den Akku. Das heißt, mit On kann man den Akku aktiv schalten und mit Off ist der aus, komplett getrennt, ist aber angeschlossen dann an einen Charge. Anschluss, also einen Anschluss zum Aufladen. Das heißt, damit kann man das Gerät oder den internen Akku dann aufladen. Und darüber hinaus gibt es hier noch einen Anschluss für die klassische Stromversorgung und die schließen wir jetzt hier mal an, dass wir das Gerät mit Strom versorgen können. Außerdem hier mal die Taster in der Seite rein in den Mikrofonanschluss, dass wir hier das Mikrofon benutzen können. Und ich schließe an hier den BNC-Anschluss an ein Antennenkabel, damit wir hier auch Strom haben.
Und Informationen aus der Schweiz durch multimediales Online-Storytelling zum Leben erweckt.
Kommen wir dann zur Bedienung und zum Funktionsumfang des Gerätes. Ich schalte das hier mal ein über den Power-Knopf, den einfach drücken und halten und dann startet er hoch und dann seht ihr schon, hier steht ein MCAF, QRP-Transceiver, UHSDR-Version, UHSDR, die Firmware, die hier drauf installiert ist. Ja, dann haben wir hier einen schönen Bildschirm, einen kleinen, einen bunten mit auch einer Touchscreen-Funktion und zu dieser Touchscreen-Funktion muss man was ganz Wichtiges sagen, denn wenn ihr euch das Gerät selber zusammenbaut, dann habt ihr natürlich einen funktionierenden Touchscreen und könnt den auch benutzen. Wenn ihr das Gerät, so wie ich, als RS918 in China als Komplettpaket kauft, dann steht meistens nirgendwo was von einem Touchscreen. Im besten Fall wird noch darauf hingewiesen, dass der Touchscreen nicht funktioniert, weil die Firmware irgendwie schlecht ist und deswegen klappt das nicht. Die Wahrheit dahinter ist aber, dass in den Geräten aus China meistens billige Touchscreens verbaut werden. Die werden billig eingekauft, weil die durch die Qualitätskontrolle gefallen sind, sozusagen Abfallprodukte sind. Und die Hersteller verbauen die aber trotzdem, durchtrennen das Flachbandkabel zur Touch-Funktion, sodass das Gerät ohne Touch-Funktion ist und man zumindest den Bildschirm irgendwie nutzen kann. Ihr habt dann 2 Möglichkeiten, wenn ihr euch so ein Fertiggerät kauft. Erstens, ihr könnt versuchen, diese durchtrennte Verbindung, dieses durchtrennte Flachbandkabel wieder zusammenzulöten. Das ist schwierig und ihr habt danach leider auch keine Garantie darauf, dass der Touchscreen dann
Alguém está tentando sem áudio. Tá bom, colega? Sem áudio. Não tem nada de áudio, ok? 7 horas e 41 minutos. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
Power-Button schon kennengelernt zum Ein- und Ausschalten. Daneben sind hier die Bandwechselknöpfe. Ihr seht, wir haben
Ok. Escapou, acho que 1% do áudio. Tá? Não está dando para entender. Você está com um ronco bem forte e o áudio extremamente baixo, ok? Dá uma olhada, algum problema aí na conexão, microfone, volume, potenciômetro aí de volume, ok? Não sei se é mic de ganho, mas não tem praticamente nada de áudio. O que escapa um pouquinho do áudio, ininteligível, e o ronco que está vindo junto, um ronco bem forte, acaba encobrindo, tá bom, colega? Não sei quem é, mas dá uma acertada aí, tenta novamente. Tá? Mexe em tudo aí, conecta, desconecta, mexe no potenciômetro, né? Dá uma geral aí que tá um barulhão tremendo aí e sem áudio. Só ronco, infelizmente, continua o ronco.
durchgehend Frequenzen im Prinzip anspringen. Und ich gehe jetzt mal hier wieder zurück aufs 20 Meter Band. Ja, dann haben wir hier den Knopf, den habt ihr schon gesehen, wo wir die Frequenz ändern können. Ihr seht hier die Sprungdistanz auch angezeigt, 1 Kilohertz, da oben drüber in so einem blauen Balken. Die können wir natürlich hier ändern. Wir können hier durchspringen durch die einzelnen
Continua roncando, ok? Sem áudio, nada de áudio, só ronco.
verschiedensten Sprungdistanzen schnell auch durchs Band scrollen, wenn wir das wollen. Ja, dann haben wir hier 3 Knöpfe. Die 3 Knöpfe, die korrespondieren hier mit diesen 3 Anzeigen, die hier im Display sind. Das erste ist der AF-Gain und hier kann ich also quasi mal lauter machen, dann hören wir auch ein bisschen was. Und auch wieder leiser machen. Dann haben wir hier die AGC, die wir ansteuern können damit und hier die RIT. Ihr könnt diese Knöpfe drücken und dadurch andere Funktionen aktivieren. Und dasselbe ist auch möglich mit den Knöpfen hier unten runter, Knöpfe M1 bis M3. Und wenn ich da mal zum Beispiel hier einfach mal drauf drücke, dann seht ihr, springt hier auch die Anzeige im Knopf, beziehungsweise wenn ich hier drauf drücke, springt die auch hier. Und dann kann ich zum Beispiel hier, habe ich so einen kleinen Equalizer mit Bass und Höhen und kann dann eben den Knopf hier dazu nutzen, andere Einstellungen zu ändern. Ja, dann haben wir hier unten drunter noch so ein paar wichtige Knöpfe, zum Beispiel den Modus. Ihr seht, wir sind im Moment hier im USB-Modus. USB, LSB unterstützt das Gerät natürlich. Wenn ich da jetzt einmal drauf drücke, kommen wir in den Bereich CW, sodass wir hier natürlich auch CW mitmachen können. Und ihr seht, da oben läuft auch jetzt hier wie wild gelb was durch. Das ist ein CW-Decoder, der hier eingebaut ist. Wir sind hier im Moment im FT8-Bereich, deswegen funktioniert der hier nicht. Aber wenn man auf einer CW-Station ist, dann hat man hier einen CW-Decoder mit dabei. Nächster Modus ist dann AM für AM-Radiosender. Genauso gibt es FM, FM Wide und FM Narrow, um auch FM zu empfangen. Und es gibt einen Digitalmodus hier, der ist zum Beispiel da, um RTTY hier zu machen und auch direkt zu dekodieren. Und dann sind wir auch wieder im USB-Modus. Ihr könnt, wenn ihr bestimmte Sachen davon nicht braucht, die im Menü bequem ausschalten, sodass die nicht durchgecycelt werden. Also wenn ihr zum Beispiel sagt, ich brauche kein AM und kein FM, kann man es einfach in den Einstellungen ausschalten. Daneben haben wir dann den Knopf DSP, der schaltet so einen kleinen DSP durch. Das wird euch hier an der Seite angezeigt. Im Moment ist der off. Wenn ich da einmal drauf drücke.
Não, agora melhorou. Sem ronco. Bom dia, bom dia. PY2EXU, adiante.
Tá aí o PX2EXU aí, tá aí, PY2, né? Bom dia, abraço pra você, tudo de bom? Papa Alfa Mike, PY2, Papa Alfa Mike, é o Maurício aí que tá tranquilo.
Ok. 2, Papa, Alfa Mike. Mauri, né? Mauri, Carapicuíba. Grande abraço, tá bom, Mauri? Bom sábado, tudo de bom pro amigo. Descobriu o defeito, Mauri? O que era lá o ronco? O 2, Papa Alfa Mike, PY2EXU, Paulo, adiante.
Beleza, Paulo. É Maurício, tá bom? Não é Almauri, não. É Maurício, tá bom? Paulo.
Cara, eu tava com o KBS 2000 aqui, eu acho que ele tá pegando ronco de fonte, cara. A fonte da câmera tá lá em cima, tem uma fonte que tá mais aqui próxima, eu desliguei as outras. E, então esse KBS aqui, ele tá... Acho que ele tá captando muito ronco aí da fonte, aí deve ser por isso. Aí eu coloquei o PTT original no rádio aqui, aparentemente acho que voltou normal, né?
Só que tem um detalhe, tá bom, Maurício? Você estava com um sinal muito mais forte, ok? Se você quiser, tenta novamente jogar potência alta. Então, está me chegando final de escala agora, está me chegando a 9, sem ronco. Tá bom? Eu acho que não tem nada a ver com mic de ganho, né? Porque eu acredito que tenha sido aí a potência, né? E talvez a fonte não aguenta a corrente que o rádio consome, ok? Para fazer uma experiência, já que você voltou com o mic original, tá limpinho, ok? O áudio tá limpo, limpo, limpo agora. Mas volta na potência anterior, né, que você punha final de escala, para ver se não vem ronco, se não vem nada. Se não vier ronco, ficar limpinho, né, chegando no final de escala em alta potência, pode ser problema lá de conexão do mic, ok? Mas eu vi aqui que teu sinal era 1, né, final de escala, e agora é outro, é 9, ok? Então, provavelmente você baixou potência. Fala, Maurício. PY2 Papa Alpha Mike, PY2EXU Paulo, aeroporto de Congonhas.
Beleza, Paulo. Agora tô na máxima, tá bom? É um 731 aqui, tá? Agora tá na máxima. Tô no aeroporto de Congonhas aí, né, Paulo? Ficando muito bem aqui, fim de escala. E a fonte não, a fonte boa, cara. É uma Voyager de 50 amperes aqui, inclusive só tá tocando ela. Eu desliguei todas as outras aqui pra ver esse teste aí. Mas eu acredito que seja por causa da... Tô com a fonte na minha central de monitoramento aqui. Vou trocar ela. Preciso pôr uma fonte menos barulhenta, né? Que tá um pouquinho barulhenta aqui a fonte. Eu acredito que até seja isso. Beleza, Paulo? Mas TKS aí. Bom, pelo menos o PTT aqui dá para transmitir normal aqui. Beleza? Um abraço para você também. Aquele feliz ano novo aí para você e toda a família aí. Beleza, Paulo? É o Maurício, Papa Alpha Mike. Então é no 731 agora, potência máxima, viu, Paulo?
Ok. PY2 Papa Alpha Mike, Maurício. Foi bom fazer essa experiência. Tá? Trocando o mic, resolveu, ok? Você voltou a chegar ao final da escala. Tá? O áudio está limpo, limpo, limpo. Não tem ronco. Então, esse ronco está vindo só com o uso lá do outro mic de ganho, né? Aí pode ser um monte de coisa, né? Pode ser mesmo que ele esteja captando aí algum ruído, né? Carregador de celular, de notebook, tablet, né? Tem um monte desses aparelhinhos, desses carregadores que quando você liga para carregar, vem ruído na frequência. Né? E com o original não vem, né? Porque de repente é só a cápsula, não tem nenhum circuito amplificando o áudio, né? E de outra forma, ele até capta o ruído, né? E não é defeito do mic, né? De repente, é lá uma condição que ele está captando lá o barulho, né, o Maurício? Tá, mas tá limpinho agora, tá? Final de escala, áudio 5, excelente. Deixa eu dar bom dia pro Ian. Grande abraço, hein, Ian? Foxtrot quarto, Whisky Delta Victor, lá pelos Alpes franceses. E aí, tudo em paz? Como que anda as coisas aí pela França? Um baita abraço, tudo de bom. E bom início aí de ano, tá bom? Um feliz 2023, tá bom, Ian? Muita saúde, muito QSJ no bolso, tudo de bom. Então tá aí, ô Maurício. Resolvido o problema, né? Agora precisa ver por onde que está captando esse ruído, né? Parece que até você já tem uma ideia do que seja, né? PY2 Papa Alpha Mike, adiante.
Beleza, Paulo, tá aí. Isso aí é fonte mesmo, cara. Aí tá ali em cima ali, ó. Quase 1 metro de distância do rádio. Mike. Mas o barulho é um pouquinho alto essa fonte, né? Fonte boa, boa, boa. Só tá alimentando as câmeras ali, mas é barulhento. A ventoinha dela acho que faz muito barulho. Vou ver se eu troco ela. Mas tá aí, Paulo. Um abraço. TKS, eu vou fazer mais um. Vou gravar uma frequência aqui. Um amigo passou aqui pra mim. E qualquer coisa, eu tô sempre no simplex também, na 146570. Aqui aqui é o que é pelo pessoal do Oeste de Carapicuíba. Tá bom, Paulo? Um abraço para você, aquele ótimo dia. Gisele?
Ok. Só te informando, Maurício, não é a fonte, ok? Você pôs na máxima aí, não deu nada de problema, ok? Então pode esquecer, não é a fonte. Tá? Nem o cooler não faz aquele barulhão todo, ok? O ruído, né, o barulho que fez com aquele outro mic ali te encobria totalmente, não via nada de áudio. Era só barulho, era 100% ruído. Tá? Quando você trocou de mic, né, limpou, né? Você pôs potência alta, tranquilo. Chegou o final de escala, não capta nada do cooler, então não tem problema a fonte. Algum outro gerador de ruído aí, carregador, alguma outra causa aí para aquele barulhão todo. Tá bom, Maurício?
Ah, beleza. Eu vou dar uma verificada aqui, né? O cabo é novo, o cabo aqui tava normal, né? Eu vou fazer um teste também, mudar de lugar, né? Pode ser também, não sei. Mas enfim. Mas eu vou dar um teste nele pra ti. Beleza, Paulo? Mas tem KS pelas reportagens aí, pela força, ok? Tem KS mesmo.
Ok, Maurício. E um feliz 2023, feliz ano novo, tudo de bom pro amigo.
Opa, aí, feliz ano novo pra você também, família, ok? Tem KS, Paulo.
Positivo. Bom, passou aqui o Maurício, P2EXU Alpha Mike, Carapicuíba, pondo no final de escala, hein? Sinalaço, hein, Maurício? Parabéns aí. 7h51. Mais alguém na frequência?
Ist man natürlich ein bisschen schwach auf der Brust, aber es ist halt ein QRP-Radio, ein kleines Reiseradio, was man leicht mitnehmen kann. Es hat einen eingebauten Akku, mit dem man, ja, so, ich sag mal, 1 Stunde locker Betrieb machen kann und dann für weitere Aktivitäten, wenn man so einen Tag draußen ist, dann habe ich dann eben so einen Akku mit dabei. Ein sehr schönes Radio, habe ich jetzt ja knapp 1,5 Jahre, ein bisschen länger als 1,5 Jahre, habe sehr viel Spaß damit gehabt, einige Funkverbindungen draußen damit machen können. Aber es ist Zeit für was Neues und deswegen wollte ich das unbedingt nochmal euch ganz kurz vorstellen. Ich hoffe, mein Review hat euch gefallen, konnte euch so einen kleinen Eindruck geben von dem MCHF, dem UHSDR oder RS8 918, je nachdem, wie man das Ding denn nennen möchte. Vielleicht sollte ich noch eine Sache zum Abschluss erwähnen. Es ist natürlich auch problemlos möglich, den an PC anzuschließen über USB. Der stellt eine CAT-Schnittstelle und Audioschnittstellen zur Verfügung, dass man sich um nichts kümmern muss. Another tidbit of the another segment of the part 1 test video for the ham radio Go box. I put the white LED light at the back, a strip that's on a switch. It's got some different modes built in. I put that one on a strobe. The one up top in the back of the box is on the pulsating red glowing. And I got these 2 white ones right here on the side, so just kind of for fun there. So got the APRS making noise, so you can hear what that sounds like if you're not familiar with the APRS. It's not beaconing at the moment, but got the Greenlight Labs GPS on the back of the faceplate there. So other than that, another angle on the ham radio Go box here from N0WAR in the shack. Also have some blue LED lights in the back. Those are coming from the fans, from the Pro Cool fans. But I also have a roll of the blue LED lights that work pretty good, so been playing around with those. So that's about it. Another angle. Love the LED lights. And we'll be back with a part 2 here, still working on the back of the box here. In 0 WAR. These are the LED fans from Pro Cool. Drawer. I think you can fit a full-size laptop in there. All right, another shot of the back here. Got a power strip at the bottom. And the LED.
Alguém está tentando aí falar com a gente. Chegando bem baixinho, tá bom, colega? Você fala bem perto do mic. Pra gente pegar o seu nome e o seu indicativo, ok? Tenta falar bem pertinho do mic, tá bom? PY2EXU, Paulo, adiante.
39s on it. So fans here, LEDs. This is the back of the box in 0 WAR. Bottom right, we got the power gate PY2EXU charger for the auxiliary battery. And it's also a switch, so when it loses power, it goes to the battery.
Vamos lá, colega aí que está chamando. PY2EXU, adiante.
Power strips.
Eu troquei a posição do mic, continua com aquele barulho lá?
Tem que voltar na potência máxima, ok? Aquele barulho apareceu na potência máxima, ok? Sobe a potência, ô Maurício.
Vê como é que tá agora, vê se deu diferença para você, Paulo.
Positivo, sumiu totalmente, hein? Limpo, limpo, limpo. Tá bom, deu para perceber que você está com outro mic, né? Com mais ganho, com mais áudio, e 0, 0, 0 de ruído. Vamos tá 10 agora, tá bom, Maurício?
Ah, beleza, Paulo. Era aquele mic lá que tava dando ruído lá, lembra? Eu falei assim, deixa eu dar uma mudada aqui. Eu peguei e pus ele... Deixa eu ligar isso aqui. Eu pus ele para baixo, né? O mic aqui para baixo, joguei pela lateral do rádio. Dei umas reapertadas aqui nos conectores, tudo, né? Pode ser isso, não sei. Enfim. E eu tirei ele da parte de cima aqui, fui na parte de baixo da bancada. Acabou resolvendo, né?
Provavelmente, é o que você falou, ele estava lá pegando alguma interferência de alguma outra fonte, um carregador, alguma coisa ali, né, que o cabo passava pertinho e captava todo o ruído, ok? Pois para baixo, acabou. Zerou, zerou. Limpo, limpo, limpo.
É estranho, né, Paulo? Você vê como que a eletrônica é fascinante, né? Eu pus ele em cima e estava perto do 2820 e perto do meu RP90. Agora ele está aqui embaixo, perto da Voyage, da fonte da Voyage que eu tenho, 50 amperes. Praticamente do lado. E aqui já não deu problema, né?
Coisas aí da radiofrequência, né? Eu até sugeri dar uma olhada na fonte. Falei, olha a fonte, não que a fonte não aguenta. Você falou que a fonte é bem parruda. Mas, de repente, os bornes, né, o pessoal troca de rádio, eles não apertam, bem apertado, ok? Então, os bornes ficam lá bem solto, né? E o contato é daquele jeito lá, bem no cheiro, né? O rádio liga até no cheiro. É totalmente solto os fios. Aí deu potência, bem ronco, né? Porque não aguenta. De repente o rádio consome lá uns 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 amperes, vai saber, né? Um rádio de 100 watts, né? Um TS2000, um rádio de 80 watts, como esse que eu estou usando aqui, consumia uma corrente bem grande. E nessa condição de mau contato ali nos bornes da fonte acontece isso também, ok? Vou até te dar a dica, mas já descobrimos, então, resolvido o assunto, né, Maurício? Ainda bem, né? Ainda bem. E quanto à fonte, aí você falou uma fonte bem parruda, né? Não tem como, né, roncar, né? Essa fonte, o que é? Fonte linear com trafo ou é fonte chaveada, ô Maurício?
Voyage, a VF52, né? É o modelo que ela está marcando aqui. A fonte da Voyage, 50 amperes. Eu tenho uma da Saudi aqui embaixo, aqui de 30. E eu tenho uma outra aqui que é fabricação caseira, mas é muito boa, né? Que é transformador e tal. Que é 50 amperes também. Mas industrializado eu tenho essa da Saudi de 30 e eu tenho a da Voyage de 50. Eu estou usando a da Voyage, né? Aquela que tem 2 reloginhos lá. Acho que é tráfego, porque ela é levinha, então ela não é de transformador, não.
Ok. Maravilha. Não, mas tá boa a fonte. Não tem nenhum problema a fonte. Tudo leva a crer que era a posição lá do fio, passando uma parte de cima, né, da prateleira ali, enfim. Acertou na mosca, né? Você falou ainda, cantou a bola, né? Se você não tivesse cantado a bola, eu falei, ela acertou ali de alegre, não. Você falou, pode ser, e era, né? Era exatamente isso. Acertou na mosca, hein? Depois você jogava na Mega Sena, hein, Maurício?
Ah, já tem uns joguinhos aqui, né, Paulo? Vamos ver se a sorte brilha pro nosso lado também, né? Tá bom, Paulo, deixa eu terminar os afazeres agora. Já tá resolvido aqui que detalhe aqui já é. Tá bom? Tô com tudo ligado aqui, ó. 2820. O RP. Eu acho que é a fonte de baixo, viu? Quer ver, ó? Ó. Se mudou alguma coisa, você me fala aí. Quer ver, ó? Aí eu liguei as outras aqui. Bom, eu vou terminar uns afazeres aí, Paulo. Daqui a pouco eu tô de volta aí.
Ok. Só para desencargo, para você não ficar encucado, tá bom, Maurício? Quando você ligou a fonte de baixo, não veio nada de ronco, ok? Às vezes acontece o seguinte, só uma dica, ó, não só para o Maurício, né, para vários amigos. Tem fontes que elas vibram quando você liga, né, o trafo ali entre ressonância com 60 Hz, ok? E surge uma vibração e a caixa faz um barulho, né? Mas esse ronco fica só na fonte, né? Normalmente, quando essa ressonância, né, por conta lá do trafo, fica só na fonte mesmo, é um barulho que não traz nenhum problema para o radioamador. É chato, fica do lado dele aquele ronquinho chato, né? Você mexe ali, muda os parafusos, ou põe lá um outro arranjo ali que para de vibrar a tampa, mas esse ronco dessa fonte, né, quando acontece isso, é só na fonte, é vibração que entra em ressonância com o trafo, ok? Ele está trabalhando em 60 Hz, né, e 60 Hz acaba ressoando com a tampa, né, com toda a estrutura da fonte. Esse ronco, né, fica só aí na fonte, ok? Não passa para a gente. Então, se for esse barulho, pode ter certeza não é a fonte. A fonte em si funciona perfeitamente, mas pode ser essa ressonância aí do trafo e da caixa, tá bom, Maurício?
Ah, beleza, Paulo. Não, pode... isso acontece mesmo. Você já tinha até me falado mesmo. Um amigo meu que manja bem, já tinha me dado umas dicas sobre o funcionamento aí das fontes, né? Mas é isso aí, Paulo. Mas tem KS aí. Tá bom? Um abraço aí pra você. Deixa eu terminar uns afazeres. Daqui a pouco eu retorno aí. Beleza, Paulo? Eu tô sempre aqui em 70 também. Um abraço aí pra você. Um bom dia por aí, beleza? Obrigado, Paulo.
Ok. Fica à vontade, tá bom, Maurício? Grande abraço e tudo de bom. São 8 horas e 5 minutos. Oportunidade com um bom dia.
Dual band, dual receive, VHF, UHF, plus APRS and full TNC radio. Down the bottom left-hand corner, we have one of these handy-dandy little PowerWorks switching power supplies, the SS30DV. Notably on the front, there are power poles. That's actually going to be coming out of the box today as well, because I've decided this box should be standalone and assume that wherever you're going, you're going to have power. Now, as you guys have seen in some of my other videos, I build other power boxes. That's why I'm effectively going to move all powering, both AC and battery-based, into a separate box. In the middle, I've got an ICOM speaker I picked up at a Hamfest that I liked because it was short, and as you see, that works great here. And then finally, to have D-Star capability, I've got an ICOM ID 880. Now, with the inclusion of the 7100 in here, obviously I will then have two D-Star radios, but I don't really think that will be much of a problem. At the very bottom here, and this is where, when I put this in here, it made a lot of sense, but I don't know that having this drawer, which especially is how heavy as it is, at the end of the day is the smartest thing. Now you probably can't even see everything I have in here, but I've got cables and microphone cables. There's a Signal Link USB, an extra speaker, and all kinds of stuff in there. I think when I show you the back here, I probably could have just reconfigured this with some Ziploc bags in the back and been just about as good. And that may be something I look into replacing later on next year. Here on the back of the case, we have three things that are mounted. Now, on the left, it's just an antenna switch, which this actually came in quite handy at field day, as I had two HF antennas that I was using. But it's on there just in case I need some switching capability. I had one of those lying around, thought I'd attach it to this back panel. In the middle, the 4 screws you see on the other side is actually a rig runner. I think it's the 4004, but it's the model that has the 2 built-in USB sockets. And then on the right-hand side, we have a What's Up power meter that is basically between the rig runner and whatever power source you're using is where that sits. So you can get energy data about the entire box. All right, I got the unit tipped on its back here, and I just wanted to point out a couple of little things. One of the probably best things I bought when building this were these little brackets, and I don't know. The SSBRKT, and what you get is these 2 metal brackets, L brackets with holes cut in them, and these are actually designed for this power supply. They're $7 a set, but they were very helpful in determining what we were going to, very helpful in figuring out how to mount some of this equipment. Now, having thought about this a little bit more, one of the inherent problems with this, of course, is all the equipment is mounted at the front. So this thing tends to be relatively front heavy. I think what might be a good strategy is to remove the shelf and move it to the back. And that would actually open up a little space here in the front to allow there to be some more room under here. Maybe there's something I could fit in there if I needed to. It would also help distribute the weight a little bit more evenly. So we're going to maybe play around with that as well. Now here I actually have the top shelf out and laid on the carpet. I'm going to be removing the 450 on the left, but I just want to give a top-down view. I do have the GPS on the back of the 710, and then I've got the body of the radio mounted quite far back for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't have shorter cables, and I didn't want to shorten them for this installation, so there's plenty of room to kind of squeeze those in there. But also, it's easier to get to the packet ports on the back of the radio. Also notice the power dongles coming out. I use all these shorty connections also from PowerWorks. I like them because they're cheap and really save me a lot of time from having to build them, especially the more exotic connectors like on the 450 there. As you can see here, with the radio removed, this is the rack shelf I deal with, and you see the offset mounting slots. I just use, if I remember correctly, it's maybe number 4, number 6 mounting hardware for everything I get at Home Depot. And then to actually secure the radio in here, you see here was one of the mounting brackets. And then I just use these thumb wheels, which actually, I don't remember where I got these, but they fit perfectly. I don't know what size they are, but they certainly made it easy to put that radio in here. If you look at what I've got here, I've also used, whenever possible, I use thumb studs to secure things to these things, just so that I can hand tighten them. Because even with lock washers and whatnot, they're going to get loose over time. So here I have the 7100 laid out in its new location. Now, you'll notice the radio's hanging off the back a little bit further than the 710, but fortunately, it's just what we have to work with. The nice thing is, though, is unlike some other radios that have a body, no cable connections actually come out of the front of the 7100 body. It's just a fan in the SD card slot. So now we're going to figure out how to mount the body and the head in there.
Now we've removed all of the old hardware, some of which you can see laying here, and have got it mounted in the official icon bracket using, I don't know if you can really see those all that well, but using some more thumb screws. These I got off eBay for 100 of them for quite cheap. I think they're M4. They're the standard metric thread that pretty much every radio mobile mount uses. And again, they're quite handy for this situation where, you might want to be able to easily disassemble it later, or when there's not really enough room to get a screwdriver in here, can't really tell, but this gets in the way of this. So yeah, these are great. So now I've got the head unit mounted. Now, unfortunately, this thing comes with 2 sets of screw holes on the bottom.
Ham Radio Concepts, the place to come for amateur radio videos.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is Eric, KJ4YZI, with Ham Radio Concepts, and I had fun making that introduction, probably more fun than I did playing with the radio. So we're checking out today the FTM 400D, thanks to, as you've seen in the introduction, gigaparts.com for allowing me to borrow these things to bring it to you in video, because without Gigaparts and getting these in my hands, I wouldn't be able to show you this cool stuff in video. So I really appreciate what they did, and I figure I can give them just a big thank you in the introduction showing their stuff. So this is an open box model, a floor model of the FTM 400D that they had. Now, you may notice online the FTM 400XD, and the big difference is the GPS. This model here, the GPS locks a little slower than the FTM 100 did. So when they came out with the FTM 400 XDR, that had a better locking or faster locking GPS, but this really wasn't an issue for me. So this radio is still usable and completely compatible with everything else if you're in the used market looking for one, or open box model, if you can't justify spending the extra money. So I want to take a look at this one, especially being that it's open box. I'm not afraid to break it. Now, Yaesu FTM 400D, dual band, analog and digital, VHF, UHF, with analog and C4 FM system fusion, and guess what? APRS in it. Yaesu still puts the APRS in these, and I love that, because APRS is still very usable. So we're going to turn this on. I factory reset this radio. I'll show you right into the menu. We'll get right into the meat and potatoes. And then after, I'll show you around the radio. And also in the next video, I have the camera mic to go with it. So I'll snap a picture from a handheld and send it to this so you can see how that works and what it looks like. So turning this radio on, you'll first be greeted with, please enter your call sign. Okay. The beautiful touchscreen display, if my camera really can do it justice, is just marvelous. I mean, if you had this in your vehicle, well, with this touchscreen, very highly advisable not to have it on your dashboard in direct sunlight for a while. But not only that, don't have it on your dashboard so it gets, vandalized or broken into and you get your head unit stolen, because that would, if someone was looking at this through a window and it was on, it really looks technical. So keep that out of the way. I know I had a Kenwood years ago that had a big LCD screen on it, and in the sunlight for a while, it turns it black. So you want to make sure, if you can, that's why it's a remote head. You can definitely take that thing and do away with it, out of the sun. So the touch screen, we'll just type in my call sign real quick. Very simple. Now the touch screen on this, I've noticed, is not quite like a smartphone. You have to pretty much, hold your finger on it for about 1/8 of a second to get it to really recognize your response. No problem there. But, you can't go fast on it. For those texters out there that just blast through, touchscreen phones, it doesn't work like that. So now you're greeted with the main screen of the radio. And right off the bat, you can see you have VFO-A, VFO-B, your mode on the right, and your volume and signal meters on there. So right there, it's pretty easy to get going. I'll show you. If you want to, we'll start with the analog repeater. Let's say I want to get on a local repeater in my area. Very simple. You can either go VFO-A or VFO-B, just like that. You can tap VFO-A, use the dial to change the frequency. Notice the automatic shift direction is on. Okay. Now I'm in FM auto mode. Notice the line on top of the FM indicates it's listening for all types of signals, whether it be voice, digital narrow, voice wide, or FM. So as the FTM 100 had, there's a couple similar buttons. The display and setup button, the group monitor, the digital wires X button is all on this radio also. So kind of similar with the features, just